again, everybody. I am back. It seems like I was just here. That's because I was. We just finished up Graybeard's studio less than an hour ago. But now we get to the big show of the day, which is we're going to be launching Kevin Grevious's comic book project. It's over on Kickstarter. I believe it is live right now. You'll find the link in the description of this video. But let's bring in some friends here and get this show on the road. First of all, I'm going to bring in, I got Andy Smith joining me. He wanted to get in on some of this action. So there he is, Mr. Andy Smith. He just closed out Kordrath, The Reckoning, and is dealing with the printer right now, which is always fun times.
It is fun times. Thank you for having me. Yeah, it's I had the files uploaded to the printer yesterday. Then the designer, I guess, on their end emailed me this morning and said, "Hey, I'm looking at the files and the art looks great. And this is for the artist edition. The art looks great. I need you to move all the page numbers over and this and that." And we were emailing back and forth. And I'm like,
it's always something,
okay.
Man. It's always something. It's always something. But let's bring in the guest of the hour, the man of the hour. We're going to be launching his comic project. We'll have him in here to tell you all about it. We'll talk to him, get a little background on him, talk about Bigfoot, talk about other strange things. And but anyway, here he is, writer, actor, director, producer, Kevin Grevioux. There he is. Hey, Kevin, thanks for joining us.
Oh, thank you for having me. How you guys doing?
Good.
Doing great,
excellent.
Man.
Hey, man. So this is kind of a big day for you, getting your feet wet in crowdfunding comics.
Yes.
A lot of people now, if they tuned into the Sunday show, and we had a huge audience for the Sunday show 2 weeks ago, and you joined me, they found out that what a big comic book fan you really are, and this is this is a first love for you, right? And I'm gonna rehash the entire interview we did on Sunday, but I want to go back to hit a few key points. Would you, for those people that are new right now tonight, how did you get into comics? How did you first discover comics? You had a story about your grandfather, I believe, right?
Yeah, I think I will tell you, I grew up a monster kid first and foremost. I didn't get into comic books as a hobby until I was 12. But prior to that, I did have, a comic book here and there. You know what I'm saying? I remember my very first comic book memory was, I'm going to say Justice League 92. And I remember that was unique because I didn't understand yet how there were two Robins and two Supermen, and you know what I'm saying? Right. But Robin was older and he had a funky costume. And I really didn't get the Earth 1, Earth 2 concept at the time. And then there was an issue of, I don't think it was Dead Man #1, but it was the Boston Brand origin, the Dead Man origin.
Strange Adventures.
Yeah, and I somehow got my hands on that, though I don't remember the cover. I just remember the story. So I was a monster kid from the time I was like 6 until 12. And I remember with my brothers and I, my grandfather took us to a newsstand. And I don't even know why we went there, but, he got us, 2 Treasury editions apiece. And the Treasury editions, are, I guess, what kind of solidified my love for the medium, because the 2 I got were the Fantastic Four and the Hulk. And those remain my top 2 books, our favorite books of all time. You know what I'm saying? And, of course, there was a buddy of mine who lived on the other side of the block from me in New Jersey when we lived there. And he was a huge comic book fan. And, the first year we met, he gave me an EC comic. It was a reprint, And I read that, and there was a story in there that was kind of chilling. It was about the Ragman. Tales from the Crypt, the Ragman. And then after that, I think a year later, my brother had gotten some comics from an old-fashioned comic book store where we were taking music lessons. And I went in there and discovered this whole world that I never knew existed, So, that's when comic books were really fun and fascinating and just transported you into another world altogether. And that's what I like.
Now, you had told me that, okay, you went to Howard University, correct?
Yes, sir.
So you were a comic book fan, but you weren't thinking initially about working in comics or even acting or getting into film, right? That wasn't your
Not at
first
all.
direction.
Not at
So
all. Yeah.
take us
Yeah.
back to that a little bit.
Okay, well, my parents were academicians. So there was no such thing as doing something creative, for a living. You know what I'm saying? They didn't understand that. Here they're coming from Chicago, and I think they were most likely the first generation of blacks that had a choice in terms of what they wanted to do, in terms of, education, college, this, that, and the other. Because even my great grandparents went to college, but there was a period there where, no one went, and then they, came back, but they were strict about business, doctor, lawyer, teacher, sociologist, engineer. Anything creative was something different. So my mother did not stop us from reading comic books, but she grew up during that era where they were considered a lesser form of literature, you know, and so
So
that's it.
they were sort of guiding your path education wise, but were you in the back of your mind going, man, I wish I could do this, but I know my parents are going to, or was that even a consideration
Well,
doing?
well, here's the thing: it wasn't a consideration because I knew no one who was doing it. I mean, none of the kids in our neighborhood. Everyone was thinking about those traditional jobs,
Mm-hmm.
and it wasn't until um, Spike Lee did "She's Gotta Have It" that I kind of put everything all together and said, well, wait a minute now. I didn't know brothers could even direct movies or whatever. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I knew no one in my school who was a film major. That's just not something that we did. But when he did that, I mean, say what you want to about his storytelling or whatever, but I think he opened a new path for a lot of people who never thought they could, even enter film. And he made it possible. I mean, this dude, 29 years old and used credit cards to get a movie done. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
That, that's fascinating. And so that
Well,
kind of
so
put everything together for me.
were you, okay, so you were at Howard. So what were you taking? What was your major?
Man, I was a microbiology major.
Oh, wow.
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 Okay.
Yeah, I was a microbiology major.
So
And
you
So-
not only sound smart, you actually are smart. Is that,
So did you graduate with,
I don't know about all that now.
did you graduate with a degree in that?
Yes, and
Oh,
I also
wow.
majored in chemistry and psychology as well. So I was on a path to really become a research scientist.
Mhm.
And I got to grad school and was studying genetic engineering, and I was just in the recesses of my mind, I was really having a hard time deciding what I wanted to do because there were certain things happening in my life at the time. I mean, I was going to grad school, and believe it or not, man, I had like 2 or 3 jobs at the time. So it's like I would I would get up and go to school, from 10 to 2. Then I would go be a security guard, at I think it was AT&T, way out in McLean, Virginia. And then after I got off work, which was about 11, I had to go home and change, and I would work as a bouncer, from 12 to 2.
Oh, wow.
So, and if I could pick up work, and it's not that I was necessarily industrious per se, but here's the thing. When I graduated college, because I didn't go to grad school right away, I didn't realize I would have so much time on my hands. It's like now that school's over,
Oh, right.
I'm just working, And so when you get home from work, what am I going to do? I go work out or something. But it's like, man, I could be making some money. You know? And when you're young, you kind of think that way because you have all the energy in the world. So, hey, I started bouncing, you know, and that was cool. So I had a good time doing that. But yeah, so I was on a completely different path, career wise. But once Spike Lee came out with that movie, I said, I think I can put it all together. It's just how do I do it? I don't know anyone, you know,
Right.
no professional. So it's about saving money and then moving out to California and trying to figure it out, and I had no guidance in that.
At what point did you break the news to your parents that you were going to go pursue film and not?
Well, you know what? We weren't really speaking at the time.
Oh.
Yeah. What happened? I used to call myself the black sheep of the family. And, my thing, because everyone in my family has a master's or, better. And so I'm the only one with just a BA, So it's like, and doing something creative. So I'm trying to figure out how to do this. So since we were kind of on, the outs, it was easy to make the transition,
Right.
It's just that how am I going to do it,
Did you get your first comic writing gig or your first acting gig?
I got my first acting gig before comics, but
Okay.
you see, the comics didn't take off until Underworld because, I wrote the original screenplay to the film.
Right.
So since that got around, it was like, oh, okay. So he's a creator, and that's when I got the call from Marvel.
Okay.
And
so they called you.
Yeah. It was a combination, if I'm being honest, because a buddy of mine, he had done a book for them. And he wanted to put me in touch. And when he put me in touch, they said, we've been looking for you. But, we didn't know how to get in touch with you. So it was kind of this thing we would pass each other. And then finally someone made a connection. And that's what it was. So
after Underworld, you were sort of acting as well as you had your feet in both arenas. You were working, doing some comic work, doing Hollywood, doing some comic work, doing Hollywood, kind of like that.
Yeah, exactly. Now, I did have, I think it was about 7 independent books that came out through, remember that company, Mike Miller's company, Alias?
Yeah.
So I was friends with Mike, and I wound up going with his company with a couple of IPs I had, a couple of comics I had. But you know how that collapsed, relatively quickly.
Yep.
But it was a while before I was able to get with Marvel, and it was a pretty cool experience. Those initial calls and all that. I'm getting ready to write comic books for Marvel. Dream come true. So that was cool. I like that.
That's cool. That kind of brings us full circle to why we are here tonight, and that's because you are launching. Now, is this your first crowdfunded comic project?
Yes, it is. Yes,
Okay.
it is. My first.
All right. Now I'm going to bring up the campaign. I want you to tell us a little bit about it, and then we'll watch the video now that I got my audio working, apparently.
Okay.
So I want to say hi to everybody in the chat. I see you guys over there. We'll get to some of your comments here in a little bit. Okay, here we go. All right. Let's go ahead and watch this video that you prepared for us. And please, God, let the audio work. Here we go.
Hello. Kevin Grevioux here.
Can you hear it?
As a Hollywood writer,
Turn it up some. I'd full screen it too.
Original screenplay to the successful Underworld franchise, as well.
Better?
I've written comics for
A little bit. It's still a little on the low side.
I lent my talents to working on characters like Spider-Man, Blade, Doctor Strange, Iron Man, the New Warriors, and I created the much loved Blue Mark. Well, I created my own comic book company, Darkstorm Comics and Media, through which I can create my own comic book characters for eager audiences to enjoy. Characters like Darkstorm, Shurika, Ike Frankenstein, and King of Killers, just to name a few. And the new project that I want to tell you about today is DJINNTARA, Rise of the Jinn. Now, this is a story that I've had in my head for quite some time, and it brings together three of my favorite genres: fantasy, monsters, and gritty detective drama. DJINNTARA Rise of the Jinn is the story of Tamara Basil, a terminally ill Washington, D.C. police detective who, while on the trail of a dangerous serial killer, discovers that she is part of an ancient race of genies called Jinn. But what happens when she also discovers that she is the prophesied leader of one of these spiritual factions, who wants her to not only aid them in a war against their own kind, but against mankind as well? Can she resist the temptation and maintain her humanity? That's the question. Or will she succumb to the evil power that now swells within her? Now, the contents of this book was released in 2022 as a 3-issue miniseries published by myself and my two great friends Joe Grusha and Ralph Tedesco at Zenescope Entertainment, and phenomenally illustrated by the talented Elmo Bonda. Well, we're now collecting those 3 issues in a trading paperback with additional material, which includes an all-new surprise cover by artist extraordinaire, the great Ron Garney, if we are able to meet our goal. So I ask, would you please help us get this fantastic project into your hands as soon as possible? Thank you.
All righty. You got Ron Garney in this too, huh?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, great guy. Great guy.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah, he's cool.
Okay. The audio on that was a little bit low. I apologize, but so go ahead and give us the elevator pitch for this again, if you don't mind.
Oh, yeah. You know, no problem. Basically, DJINNTARA is a story of Tamara Brazil, who is a DC detective who, unfortunately, has terminal cancer. And this is in the midst of her chasing down a serial killer that has, you know, terrorized the DC metropolitan area. Well, she discovers while on this case that she is also a member of an ancient race of genies, you know, which we call Jinn. That's the, you know, actual technical term for genies. And she has a decision to make, you know, once, you know, this power starts swelling within her, you know, does she reject this dark power, or will she be really seduced by it, you know? And so it's kind of like this character interplay between, you know, her trying to balance these two worlds and what that would also, you know, ultimately mean for her and, you know, humankind as well eventually.
This is nice looking artwork. This is you know, this is a nice professional looking book, and I don't mean that to sound condescending, but a lot of times, you know, a lot of times you get projects out, and I mean, obviously you're a comic book guy, so you know what you're looking for, and it's clear in how this is put together that you know that you're a pro and you know what you're doing, and it this looks like look at Ron, how happy he is. But no, this looks great, and now this book is completely done, right?
Yes, yes, it is. I do have some additional pages I'm going to add to it just to sweeten the pot. Okay. But what I want to do is collect this into a trade paperback, you know, with other extras, behind the scenes extras, and you know, also the Ron Garney cover, you know, is going to make it, you know, really a new project, you know, something I like to put out there, and I think people will really enjoy it.
So this is I'm trying to remember now. So this is the first 3 issues collected together, right? In a trade paperback is what this is, right?
Yes, sir.
With some new material.
Yes, sir.
And here's the different levels here that you can back at. You got the just get the trade. There's a digital offering first.
Yes.
You've got the trade paperback and the swag box. What do we got in there? You got the trade paperback, the digital.
I got a couple of things in there. You know, the trade paperback. You know, posters, bookmarks. trading cards, things like that.
Okay. Oops, that's not where I want to be. I'm used to navigating Indiegogo, so I'm sitting here pushing buttons on Kickstarter going, wait, where did it just take me? So you can get a signed copy.
Yes.
You got some T-shirts here, it looks like.
Yeah, T-shirts, I like those. Then I have, I'll do some, message, phone message or, greeting.
That's
That's
cool.
nice. I love that.
People have been trying to get me to do that for years, but I've kind of resisted it. Now I'm like, maybe that's a possibility.
That's right. Well, hey, you do it. You do whatever it takes, right, to sell the book. But those are great. I'm sure there's a lot of people would love to have that.
Yeah, exactly.
That is awesome.
Yeah, and then the big tier we have is kind of like a 30-minute phone consultation with me, or I shouldn't say consultation, more like a conversation about the industry for those who really want to get in, the industry and don't know how. And I can kind of demystify, things that they've heard, a way to get in, a way to understand the industry, this, that, and the other. And, when I first got in the industry, there was no one I could go to and talk to about that. So I want to be able to do that for those up and comers who are really interested.
Dude, that's a cool perk.
In the industry. Yeah.
That's a cool perk.
Aaron, you should get that one.
Yeah. That's right. After the show tonight, he's going to charge me $400 for coming on. Anyway, you guys, we'll be checking back on this throughout the show, see how it's doing. But the link to this campaign is in the description of this video. All you have to do is click on it and go right over there and back it. Let's see where we at right now. 571. Okay. You guys run over there and support this book because it looks like it's kick butt. I love the story. And one of the things that I remember, the first stuff I've read of yours was Bass Reeves, you were working on with David. And I was really impressed with, this is what I knew. I said, this guy knows what he's doing because you don't overwrite. And I think that's probably because you work in a visual medium, which is, film as well. But it's like, there's guys that just like, how many words can I put on a page? And I was reading through the Bass Reeves and I was like, this guy knows what he's doing. I mean, the dialogue is where it needs to be. The caption is where it needs to be, but you didn't overwrite. You let the visuals tell the story when it needed to. You come in with the dialogue and stuff. So I was not knowing you personally at the time when I think we had met at a show a couple years ago, but I hadn't seen your comic book work, and I was like, this guy knows how to write. So.
Oh, thank you.
Let's take I got a couple of scans here that let's see, we just saw that. So let's hang on now. It's a little small, but I like that. It looked like this chick just blasted a genie or something here. Let's take a look.
Yeah. That's tomorrow. Yeah. These are some images for the variant covers that Zenescope likes to do.
So how many variants do you have? Or are you gonna have?
Well, there are 3 variants that came, one variant per book when the book came out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so so basically you're gonna, I see what you're saying.
Yes.
So you got the new covers for the trade, but you're also going to...
Yeah, the new cover is going to be a Ron Garney cover.
All right, okay, new cover. Yeah. So are these variant covers, are they inside the book as like the previous covers?
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, they will be inside the book.
It's like a cover gallery or something of the...
Yeah, exactly. What I want to do, put in some... what do you call those things? Kind of like these, sketches, sketch designs, things like
just
that.
Behind the scenes stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe a couple of pages of script, that people can see, what I was thinking, this, that, and the other. I had gotten into doing what they call decks as well. And, decks have, they're kind of like, well, they're visual presentations of what you want the film to look like. And of course, I want this to be, a film. And so
Oh
I
yeah.
put together a deck, encompassing a lot of, Sumerian artifacts, imagery, things of that nature, to really give an artist a good way to look at these creatures,
Mm-hmm.
and try to bring some authenticity to them based upon the myth and the lore.
Is who's your artist on? Is this the artist from the interior of the book that did this piece, or is this somebody else?
No, this is actually Paulo Pantalina,
That's a
and
nice
we
piece.
Oh
brought
yeah,
him
Apollo
in.
stuff is great.
Yeah, he's great, and we actually, commissioned him to, do the covers, and it worked out well. He did a phenomenal job.
Oh, those are nice.
Phenomenal
Yeah.
job.
God, I love the colors. On
Yeah,
the
he doesn't get around enough. I'm connected with him on Facebook. I got one of his sketchbooks. He did a
Yes.
few things for DC in the past few years on Deathstroke, but his stuff is really cool.
Yeah, most definitely.
So, after you release this trade paperback, do you have plans to do more continuing stories of it, or are you just going to use it sort of as a illustrated screenplay pitch?
I haven't decided yet. One of the, I am creating another story that's going to be within this trade paperback. A short story, maybe even, two short stories, but at least one short story, about 10 pages. They delve deeper into her world. And so, the way I look at it until you see how the audience responds, it's kind of like the short stories round out the world and also the personality of the character. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Who she is, where she comes from, why she does what she does. And it gives you a little bit more background, and I like that. I like that a lot.
Yeah.
So these are what we're looking at here is like some sort of evil
Yeah,
genie
this
type
is one of
thing.
the, yeah. This is one of the Jinn, and I have different different tiers of Jinn or types of Jinn. In the ancient world, you had a deity or spirit to represent some aspect of the world, kind of like an etiological myth.
Mm-hmm.
Etiological myths are those myths that explain a real aspect of the world, like let's say the reason why the sun moves in the sky is because the god Helios, in his chariot,
Mm-hmm.
flying across it, things like that. So that's what I kind of bring to the story.
Excellent. All right. Like I said, we'll check back on this as we go along, but I gotta ask you now, since we're in October here, and you said you grew up a monster kid, right?
Yeah. Oh,
So
yeah.
I assume then that you are a film fan of the classic Universal monsters and that type of stuff.
Of course.
So if you're picking your favorite horror film or monster film of that era, the classic era, what's your go-to?
Well, I am going to tell you, if you're talking classic and you mean Universal,
Yeah.
I am going to say that my favorite Universal monster is the Mummy.
Really?
Yeah. In fact, I was kind of disappointed when I saw the original one because you had that image of him in the sarcophagus, and then you see his hand, grab the paper, and it's like, well, I expected to see more of that. But then in subsequent films, Hand of the Mummy, Curse of the Mummy, things of that nature, then you start to see the actual mummy creature, and I really love those. But
The makeup on Karloff in this film was fantastic, and it was like you get to see like about 5 seconds of him in the opening of the film, And it's like, I still like the movie quite a bit, but it's like, I was
Yeah.
like you, especially as a kid, going, well, where's the mummy?
Exactly.
You know? And I am also a big mummy fan as well. But yeah, I was a bit, like you, a bit disappointed. And at being an older viewer now, a much older viewer, I do appreciate this film quite a bit.
Oh yes,
But
yes.
yeah, I was like I always wanted to see more of Karloff, and it's like you say, you know, that opening scene where they're sitting there in the, you know, the tomb and the sarcophagus is behind them,
Yeah.
and Karloff's sitting there, and you're like, "Ooh, this is gonna be great. He's gonna kill the guy or whatever." And you see the hand, and he's gone, and you're like, what just happened
Yeah.
there? Did they
And
edit
you know
that
what?
out?
I know, and I'm wondering why they made that decision. Because you know they had to know that people wanted to see that frightening creature. Maybe it was just the thought that you might see that creature again. I don't know, but
I
you know, ultimately they did do 3 more movies where they did show the creature. You know, and that's what I liked. In fact, that was my favorite Aurora model. You know,
yeah,
when I was building the models. You know, and I like that a lot. You know.
I wonder if the makeup was so restrictive on Karloff that they just couldn't do much with him in the makeup.
You know what? Maybe, possibly, but visually, my goodness,
Yeah.
it was just something that I thought was tremendous. You know, and I
Yep.
wish I had seen more. You
Do you
know, of that.
know, this movie poster is the most expensive movie poster known to mankind. This sold, and
What?
this was like 20 years ago. This thing sold for, it set the record for, it was over $1 million. And I actually know a guy. He has a shop on. Did you ever go to Hollywood Boulevard where you're down there, and they don't have them anymore, but they used to have tons of movie poster shops on Hollywood Boulevard. Did you ever go down there and like frequent any of the, like, Larry Edmonds bookstore or any of that stuff?
No, I don't remember that. I don't remember
Oh,
that place. Yeah, yeah.
there's a guy. He did a book. They did a book called Graven Images, and it's just got all these horror movie posters in it, and it's from this guy's collection. And there's a little shop back in this little patio area off Hollywood Boulevard. I think it's still there. It was 5 years ago. So, and the guy that owns that shop actually was the one who they featured his collection in this book. And he's got this poster. He's got Frankenstein, the original one sheet. He's got like Phantom of the Opera with Lon Chaney Sr. one sheets. It's like just nuts. And
Okay.
he's like, got him hanging up in his house, I guess. Just like, well, I hope nobody robs you. But yeah, it was an interesting guy to talk to.
Right.
But I want to show this picture because this it's funny you should mention the Mummy, because I was going to pull up a bunch of Universal monster horror films, and the only one I got to before I ran out of time was the Mummy, and it happens to be your favorite, so I guess it worked out.
Yeah.
But like,
Now,
this scene isn't even in the movie.
I know. And what I would also say too, one of my favorite monsters too, that like this is Universal, was King Kong.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
I remember that movie caused some problems between my mother and myself
Uh-oh.
because it would, for whatever reason, when we lived in Boston, you know, on this station called Channel 56, they would have it come on after my bedtime. And you know, back then parents were strict. And I'm sure
Yep.
as you know,
I had the same problem.
Oh yeah.
and with my kids, you know, we're a little lenient when they went to bed, but back then, and I see now why. My mother's like, "Oh no, you guys are going to bed at 8."
Mm-hmm.
You know, and so King Kong would come after that. So I had been seeing the advertisements for it for 3 or 4 years. And I remember I finally got a chance when we moved to New Jersey. It was finally coming on in the afternoon at 4:30, you know, during the Thanksgiving holidays. I was like, oh man, yes, I can finally see it. And do you know, my mother wouldn't let me see it because she had to do Thanksgiving shopping and didn't think I could stay at home by myself. And I'm like,
Ah,
Mom, I'm 10 years old. And she was
oh
like,
no.
you're coming with me. And I'm like,
Oh,
got to be kidding. I got the King Kong monster, model before I actually saw the actual film. I was like, oh my goodness, you know.
There's
Oh yeah,
another
this was a great
expensive,
one.
another expensive movie poster. Oh, that is amazing. But yeah, my parents were there was some Superman thing on, and this was back when I was a little kid, so it was a black and
Right.
white thing. I don't even know what it was, but we we had this little black and white TV, right? And
Uh,
I was supposed to go to bed. My dad would not let me stay up to watch this Superman thing on. It was on pretty late. I don't know why it was on so
right.
late, but I snuck down and watched it. And he came out and caught me, and I got my butt whipped, and that was the end of that. So I feel your pain, but you know what happened later though? As we got a little bit older,
Uh,
we had like Sinister Cinema and Creature Feature. They would come on. I was either Friday or Saturday nights. I think it was Friday
right.
night, and the one would start at like 11:30, right after the local news, and then at 1 a.m. would be Creature Feature. So you could literally stay up till like 2:30 in the morning watching horror films. And that's when we got little TVs in our bedroom finally. And so I was like, I would stay up and watch the horror shows and the
Right.
movies. And I figured no one would be the wiser because my parents were asleep, and I was up there,
Right.
watching Creature Feature till 2:30 in the morning. But
All right. Now I just sent you a picture of me and my collection.
oh, this on Facebook.
Yes, I did. Yeah.
Okay, let me grab it.
You can show it to the fans out there.
so you guys are trying to tell me that in the original Mummy movie, the first one, you never saw anything but his hand?
You saw him in the sarcophagus, but not
With the
moving.
rapping. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. After that, he appeared in like a fez, and he no longer had the emaciated, decaying face or whatever. They cleaned, he got cleaned up and was wearing regular clothes. So he was
Right.
still as old as he ever was, but he just wasn't wearing the traditional mummy wraps and dragging his leg and all that stuff.
Oh,
Right, the stuff we wanted to see.
Exactly.
yeah.
That's like my favorite Johnny Quest episode too.
Oh my goodness, yes, of course. That was brilliant. And I was hoping they would show more, of stuff like that on Johnny Quest, but they never did. And it was either I was reading something about the old Hanna-Barbera, um, superhero TV shows, or I met someone who was working in the field at that time, and they told me why they stopped making those shows. And there was some mothers groups that really thought the shows were too violent.
Well, they had guys firing guns. They were trying to shoot the kids half the time. The bad guys were.
Oh yeah, man. But the thing is, it was like, look, I wanted to be Johnny Quest. You know what I'm saying? And it's
Mhm.
like, or Race Bannon.
Mhm.
They got to do the cool stuff.
Right.
And that plane they would fly in. But those were just boys' adventures. And the mothers groups got together and they just said they were too violent, and that's when you started getting Scooby Doo, the Funky Phantom, Harlem Globetrotter, Hong Kong
Yeah.
Phooey,
Yeah.
Pussycats.
Yeah. It was those early, well, mid to late 60s cartoons like the Space Ghost and the Herculoids and those things, as well as Johnny Quest. That was like the golden age of TV animation, at least.
Oh yes, yes, yes.
And there was they had the Johnny Quest. They had the Invisible Monster one. Remember, they threw the paintballs on it. It was that made out of electricity. It had the big old one eye.
Yes, 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 yes,
So
yes.
they had, and there was the one where they were. No, I'm geeking out, but there was the one where they were on this Sargasso Sea, however you pronounce that, and there was that there was like a gill man monster. So every
Yes.
once in a while they had a monster episode to go along with the espionage and the other
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah,
So
exactly. They had the giant pterodactyl or Pterandon, that was cool.
yeah,
I remember they
the old
had,
guy in the wheelchair with the
exactly.
giant pterodactyl or whatever it
And
was.
then they had one Yeti episode.
Yes, that's yes.
Yeah, they
Yep.
had a Yeti episode, and then they had the one with the kind of like the daddy long leg.
Yeah, the big spider robot thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that was
creepy.
cool. So
Leg Kick says, Aaron Lopresti, I had a friend who worked for Hanna-Barbera. His name was Eddie Harris. Fantastic artist, used to draw animation for Scooby-Doo and the Flintstones. How about that? Small
that's
world,
great.
man. That's cool. All right, so here's a picture of you with all your monster toys.
Yeah, that was yeah. You can see when I started collecting these things, they had the glow in the dark option.
Right there.
Yeah, and so I would put those like with the mummy. His hand, you can't see it here, but the cobra and his hand were glow in the dark. And you know, with Godzilla, I don't know why I put the glow in the dark head on Godzilla.
That's Godzilla right there, right?
Yeah, exactly. But
Well,
I would always put their, you know, make their feet glow in the dark, like Kong was his feet and Fay Ray. You know, even though I painted Fay Ray with the creature, you know, was the hands and the feet. And what was funny is that sometimes after I turned out the light, they would still be glowing. And I would put a sheet over them.
Is it freaking you out? Is this Gorgon? Who is this dinosaur thing?
That's actually the Allosaurus it was the first prehistoric scene that Aurora came out with.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I know what you're talking about.
So it was the Allosaurus. You know, and so I had, you know, if I had taken this picture just a year later, it would have been, you know, covered with prehistoric scenes. Like, you know, as you can see, the bottom three shelves, those were from a dinosaur set I got for Christmas. So I had them, you know, that was a really big hobby of mine at the time.
You know, my memories of Christmas when, you know, at this age, we were just constantly getting cool stuff, you know?
Oh, yes.
It was like the best. You open up and you get like you said, the dinosaur play set or model kits or whatever. The good old days.
Yeah, and I was such a, you know, I was such a, you know, freak about it. You know, I had, you know, you see the three tiers. They were based upon the dinosaur eras at the time.
Oh, you were that.
Jurassic, and Cretaceous.
You were that organized, man.
Oh yeah,
that's impressive.
Yeah, I didn't want to mix them up.
Somebody, it's funny. You can't go up here, man. That's down in the Jurassic. So, did you like the newer versions, the Brendan Fraser versions of the Mummy?
You know, they were their own thing. They were good movies, just not what we grew up with. And so, you know,
I actually went to film school with the guy who directed that.
Oh, really?
Really?
Okay. Yeah. So, you know, the way I looked at it, you know, they were trying to make their own, a new Indiana Jones type thing.
Yeah.
And you know, that's fine. You know, I just wish they would pay more attention to why the classics were classic and what people really got from them and try to duplicate it. Like, I got to tell you, I hated the Wolfman, the new remake. You know, I thought that was awful, you know.
The makeup was great, though.
Yeah, the makeup was really good, but the movie itself.
Yeah, but, you know, and I know one of the producers on that, and he said he had a hard time trying to make sure they got everything right, you know, but it still didn't grab me. It really didn't. It really didn't.
It's funny how much trouble they've had rebooting the, you know, because Tom Cruise did the Mummy movie and that flopped, and then the Wolfman didn't do well, and they kept trying to like reboot this whole Universal monster franchise. They just have not been able to do it.
See, but you know what, man? It's personally, I think it's a case of too many cooks in the kitchen and too many people in charge who don't love the material.
Kind of like
I
comics.
remember I was trying, me and a buddy of mine were trying to sell a property to Universal at the time. And we wanted to use the Universal monsters, you know, within our script. And because, you know, if not, we would just replace them with our own versions, since most of those are public domain. But one of the producers we were talking with, he said he had a meeting with Spielberg one time. And Spielberg had told him, he said that they don't care about their library. They don't care about it. They were supposed to do Creature from the Black Lagoon remake.
Yeah, they've been talking about that for years.
Yeah, years ago. I probably heard this in the 90s. And right before they got the green light, one of the executives said, "Why are we doing this?" I mean, I saw Rick Baker's maquette and everything. It was phenomenal.
I'll bet.
And they said, "You know, why are we doing this movie anyway? What else do we have?" And you know what they did instead? Jaws 3.
Oh, come
Like,
on.
you know what?
Oh, God.
Well, there you go. There you
Oh
go.
my
You know,
God.
but they just don't really like these things like we do, and they don't understand them because they never grew up with them. I mean, look at the superhero genre now.
Yep, that's exactly right.
We've been telling people for years that they would make good movies. You just have to understand that the technology is not going to be like we want it to be. But once it was there, they can be done.
Yeah.
And they just did not see it. And now it's taken over everything.
Yeah.
So
Eric the Guapo says, just backed Rise of the
thank you, Eric.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Is there any, and when I say modern, well, actually, let me go back and ask you this first. Were you a fan at all of the Hammer stuff in the 60s, the Hammer horror
Yes,
films?
I was. Now, I will tell you, and a lot of people sound surprised about this, I don't really like vampires. You know,
Me either. I'm not a big vampire fan.
never have. And, you know, but the first Hammer something that I saw was the Dracula one. I can't remember what exactly it was called.
Are you talking about the one with Christopher Lee?
Yes, yeah. But I remember I came in just in time to see Peter Cushing snatch the drapes off the wall, and the sunlight inundated him, and then he put two like candlesticks together and made a cross, and he turned into a clay husk, you know, right before our eyes.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really cool. Yeah. So I enjoyed that one. But the Mummy one I thought was great. I have not been able to find Curse of Frankenstein. And I didn't like the makeup anyway, because, you know, I used to, every now and then, I would get some kind of monster book. Now, I was never able to subscribe to Famous Monsters, you know. And then, you know, one of the reasons for that is that I didn't always like, you know, who was on the cover. You know what I'm saying? I was like, I don't want to see that one.
Right.
You know. You know, but
We're a lot alike, man. I used to judge books by their covers all the time. It's like, yeah.
Oh yeah.
When his Frazetta was on the cover, I usually bought it, you know, if it was
Right. Oh yeah, totally.
Although Basil Gogos did a lot of really good covers on Famous Monsters, and I got to know him a little bit before he passed away. Really nice guy, tremendous artist. Geez, it was nice looking at some of those originals, you know, that he would bring to the conventions back in the 90s.
Yeah,
Cool
you know, I
stuff.
think he was at a convention I was at once, and I wanted to get a print, and something happened. I just forgot, and then he died, you know, shortly thereafter. You know,
Yeah, I'm pissed at myself because I was at a show in Detroit with him, and he had actual original charcoal sketches of, like, you know, Karloff as Frankenstein and, you know, Lugosi, just everything, right? And but they were, this sounds stupid to say it now out loud, but they were $350, which is nothing. But at the time, I didn't have it, right? So I got a couple of his signed prints, But man, I wish I'd grabbed one or two of those original charcoal drawings, because man, they were awesome. Man, oh well. It's the story of my life. Always $1 short when I find some artwork that I really, really want to get. Do you have any favorite, when I say modern monster films or horror films, I mean, say, since you were old enough to go to the theater by yourself, right? Is there anything that, you know, like, for me, my favorite movie all time is Jaws. I consider that a horror monster film, but you know, anything, you know, 70s,
well, I will
80s?
tell you, you know, my favorite horror film of all time is probably The Thing from Another World.
Are you talking about the original, or are you talking about Carpenter's?
The original. That's my favorite one.
Okay.
You know, if you're talking about modern day, ooh, that's a rough one. I didn't expect this question because
I'm here to mess you up.
Yeah, you know what? I'm gonna have to say.
Well, did you like the Thing remake? Did you like the Thing remake? Carpenter?
Oh yeah,
no?
yeah. I thought it was great. I thought it was great. But I still, you know, just because of the way it impacted me when I was a kid, The Thing from Another World. You know, in fact, I watch it all the time now. Like when I'm writing, I'll put it on. Like I remember when I was a kid, you know, some parts differently. Like I actually thought they used stop motion animation where when he was in the snow killing the dogs, you know, like no, they didn't. But you know, when he burst open the door, you know, and they set him on fire, I was like, oh man, you know, that scene with Kenneth Tobey opened the door and the thing was right there. I still, you know, so that was good.
Do you remember what year that was? Was that 54? 51. Okay. 51,
yeah.
Angela Curry wants to know, what year was that? Well, there you go, Angela. 1951.
Yeah, but that was a great film. You know, and then, but I guess, you know, the modern monster movie has changed a lot. I do like the Alien movies. Now, you know, the one in '79, James Cameron version was phenomenal. I will tell you that I love the modern Godzilla movies, you know, and King Kong movies.
Like the most recent ones.
Yeah, the most recent ones. And to me, like, they make me laugh because it takes me back, you know, to those old, you know, monster movies back in the day. I love those.
So you're the guy in the theater laughing during the scary scenes, right?
Yeah, you know, throwing punches, you know, things like that. You know, to see King Kong punch Godzilla like that, I was like, oh my goodness, you know, this is what I'm talking about. But you know, this is what movie making and entertainment are all about. You don't have to have all this sex and gratuitous violence. The simple stories, you know, are what I really like, and that's why those Godzilla movies I like so much. Why the superhero movies initially were just so great, because they were simple stories, you know, about good and evil, you know, good conflict, and I just love them to death. So I guess Alien, you know, would be a good one. Predator, of course.
Arnold is my lifelong guilty pleasure. Is Schwarzenegger films.
Yeah, you know, I thought that was great.
Well, you know, the original Alien was more of a horror film, where the Cameron film was more of an action adventure film. But they worked really well, you know, as a tandem.
Exactly. Now you might disagree with me on this.
Let's see.
I don't really consider slasher films horror films.
Neither do I.
Slasher films.
They're slasher films.
Yeah. I you know, to me, they're just maniacs. You know.
Yeah.
And that's it. You know.
But that has kind of defined the modern terminology. When you say horror film, that's what people think of. But I don't at all.
Yeah.
No. Well, I think the first Halloween and Friday the 13th kind of are horror films because there is the jump scares and stuff like that, but they just got so far away from it to where they're just slasher films now. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, like I, I love guilty pleasure. I love the Saw movies.
Right.
I've seen all 10. Just saw the 10th one
There's
a
10
couple
of
weeks
them?
ago.
Jeez.
Oh, I didn't know
But
that.
I love them because of the ingenuity behind the character of the contraptions that he makes and stuff like that. Plus, um, I like practical effects and I love special effects in general. So I like to look at those scenes and try and figure out how they did it and stuff. Like,
Yes.
you know, if somebody's strapped to a chair and they lose a leg or something, I'm looking at it like, where's the real leg hidden, or did they really cop out and just put a green, legging on so they could, wipe it out and put the stuff in? You know what I mean?
Well, I think it really, when you look at it from that perspective, and I bring this story up a lot, but my son, who Andy knows, Josh, he did his internship. He's an engineer, but he did his internship at Legacy Special Effects down in Burbank.
Yes.
And so he was working behind the scenes on movies, and they were doing this one short thing, and he was out in the middle of the night filming someplace, and they had this alien creature came out of the sewer and ripped this guy's through his chest or something, and they were my son was back there pumping the blood, to shoot out of the guy's chest. And the director's like, "Come on, we need more blood. We need more blood," and it sort of takes the edge off of, those type of movies when you go and see it and you're like, yeah, okay, I actually worked on that and I know how they did that. And
yeah,
but it's a different sort of taste. It's like what Andy's talking about. Those type of films are a different, for me anyway, they're a different kind of film than saying, like Fright Night, which I really enjoyed the first one, the original one. And which, speaking of which, did you see The Last Voyage of the Demeter by any chance?
You know what? I have not. I've been meaning to watch it, but I heard it was good.
It's good. It's not great. There's a couple of problems with it, but it's a monster film because they portray Dracula as a monster in this, not just as some dude with fangs. And I loved it. I loved it, even though I did have some problems with it. And I recommend you seeing it because it's worth watching, but there are a couple problems and you'll recognize them right away. But yeah, Andy, you saw it too, didn't you?
Yeah.
And I thought the ending was great. They set up for a sequel, which we're never going to see because I think that thing died at the box office in like 3 days.
It totally did. Oh yeah. What was it, like 50 million? Something really bad.
Oh, it opened like 7 million. The first weekend was like 7 million, and you're like, oh, it's over.
Yeah, that's sad. That's sad.
And I don't know why, because the trailer looked really interesting on it. Looked good. And I don't know if because it was a period piece or what.
You know what? You never know nowadays. I think in some ways the vampire genre has been played out. And it's just another one. I think there's also, and I don't think we can deny this, that streaming prevents a kind of convenience that the theater can't always compete with. It's like, am I going to go out to see that movie, or would I rather stay home to see it? You know what I'm saying?
No, I think that there's a lot of truth in
yeah.
that.
So
Graham Nolan's in the chat. He says the director also did the autopsy of Jane Doe, which was excellent.
Okay.
So, I'm surprised. It's weird when you see a movie like that you think has all the earmarks of something that should do really well and then does like really poorly.
Yeah.
It's just a mystery.
And no one knows why. You know, there are so many variables and factors now. It's just hard to know why that stuff like that happens.
Well, let's take a moment here and remind everybody why Kevin's really joining us. It's not because he loves me to death. It's because he's got a book to promote. So I'm going to have you give us the elevator pitch once again, because we probably got new people in the chat that aren't aware of it. So go ahead.
Sounds good. My pleasure. Well, DJINNTARA is about a terminally ill police detective who discovers that she is a member of an ancient race of Jinn. and now she has these, these eldritch powers, and she has to figure out how or if she should use them. And the question, that she has in her head is that would she reject this power, or will she be seduced by it? And we all know the things that can, ensue when you're seduced by dark power. So
I think the artwork looks terrific in this. And you also you mentioned earlier you got Ron Garney's doing the cover
yes,
for
Ron
you
Garney's
for this,
doing the cover.
and this is a collection of you published these a while ago, the 3 issues, and this is a collection of those 3 issues with some new material and a new
Yes.
cover by Ron Garney. Is that a fairly accurate description?
Yes, it is, sir. Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Okay. And there's some of the artwork right there's Ron looking real happy to have a job. And I want to point out, if you guys are new and just coming in, that you've got a tier for a digital copy. You can get the trade paperback. You got a swag box here that has multiple things in it. The thing that you got t-shirts. You can get a signed edition, but check this out. You can get Kevin to do like a voice thing for your answering machine. We don't have answering machines anymore, but for your phones or whatever, your answering service.
Yes.
Or look at this, for $400, you can talk to him for 30 minutes about comics and getting into comics and his experiences and in movies and TV. I mean, that's pretty cool right there.
It is. And Aaron, by the way, you're up to $800 and whatever 10 minutes is. So, because you're an hour and 10 minutes now, so 400 for a half hour. So, just saying.
That's right.
Oh, that's cool.
There we go. So we're getting some backers. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
You'll find the link in the description of this video for Kevin's project, and it'll take you right there so you can back it. Please take a look at it, and it looks like it's really, really cool. And I got a feeling it probably won't be too long before we see this optioned for TV or film. I know that's on your agenda anyway.
Oh, yes, it is.
Now,
yes, it is.
Are you, it may be too early to say anything about that, but are you, have you put out feelers on this yet, or are you waiting until the book is...
I actually just finished the screenplay last Monday, and I already have a producer who's interested.
Excellent.
Yes.
So the value of this book's going to go through the roof.
Yeah. I already have a producer that's interested, so yeah.
Yeah. When this gets made into a movie or a TV show, whatever, for Netflix, this book's going to go through the roof, you guys. So get in while you can. Fearsome Bullet says, Grevioux is one of the rare creative minds in Hollywood that is damn good at what he does. How about that?
Oh, well, thank you.
Praise.
Thank you.
Let's see. Going through the chat here real quick. Pete Tui says, I had to back DJINNTARA after hearing Kevin's love of Aurora models, classic monster flicks, and his comic is set in my hometown. How about that?
Oh, so he's from DC.
Yeah, how about that?
Thanks a lot.
Lieutenant Hughes wants to know how many pages?
It will ultimately wound up being about 120 pages.
Wow. So you got 3 issues. So these must have been like pretty, they were more than 20-page comics when you first printed these.
Yes. It was a 3-issue miniseries, and the page count averaged 38 pages per issue.
Excellent. Look at this. I tried to pronounce this dude's name, and I always screw it up, so I'm not going to. Whenever Kevin speaks, I hear, and the band played on by the Temptations.
Oh my goodness.
Well, I'm not going to bring that up yet, so I'll catch myself. So I want to talk a little bit, if I can, here about Bigfoot.
That's what we've been waiting for.
Well, now hang on, guys. So, Kevin, you're a Bigfoot guy, and you're actually working on a screenplay. First of all, tell me a little bit about your fascination with Bigfoot and why, and tell us what you can about the screenplay.
Well, to be honest, like I said, I like monsters, and my whole fascination for liking dinosaurs is because they were real monsters.
Mm-hmm.
But if you look, at microevolutionary history, when it comes to certain creatures we see in nature now, you can make a case for them being real, some being real. Like, for instance, dragons. We already know that the plesiosaur was real. We already know that on the coast of Africa, the natives there had been found eating coelacanth,
Right.
which people thought were extinct. And there have been a couple of other, creatures that, scientists thought, paleontologists thought were extinct that were still around. We also know that the gorilla wasn't discovered until 1875,
Oh.
And so, given all this, it is possible that in certain areas, there are creatures that we have never seen before, if, the deeper down you go into the ocean, the weirder the stuff you find. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't the giant squid considered a myth that they called the Kraken? And then they discover it, that it's real, decades, centuries later. So there is a precedence for some of these things being real, like the Loch Ness Monster. If you look at the way Bigfoot has been described, it's described as looking like something like Gigantopithecus, which was a prehistoric ape, bipedal ape, belonging to maybe the orangutan family or what have you, that was in, the Chinese, the China area, Tibetan area. So maybe that's where the Yeti came from. They have lived or survived through the Ice Age, and they're still living there. And maybe Bigfoot is a kind of Gigantopithecus that crossed the Bering Strait when, they touched, centuries ago. So, that's where my fascination comes from, and why I think there may be some legitimacy to the existence of these creatures.
Okay, so what's your give us a little insight into the screenplay you're working on, as much as you can.
It's too easy to duplicate. But I want it to be, it's too easy to duplicate. That's why I'm kind of guarded about the story.
Okay.
Exactly.
Well, let's do this then. Tell me about we started talking backstage before we came on about this town in
it was somewhere in Oregon or Washington, from what I remember. And there was this incident called Ape Canyon, and it was about some miners or loggers who were apparently trapped inside of an avalanche cabin by a troop of Bigfoot who were, trying to get at them and throwing rocks, tree branches at them, trying to get in, but they couldn't get in, and they held out until morning until they were able to make it out. And I've always wanted to tell a story, about that. But I think there are certain problems, unfortunately. And it's just about, how you do it,
Right.
One of the things is that if you pitch a Bigfoot story, you can't say Bigfoot. You have to say Sasquatch. Because if you say
why can't you say Bigfoot?
Because they'll laugh you out of the room. Because
okay.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know.
They'll laugh you out of the room.
I kind of thought that might be the reason, but I figured, well, I'll ask.
And the thing is, you can't, what's the plural to Bigfoot. Is it big feet? And
Right.
then that starts a joke. And then now it's kind of hard. But if you go in saying Sasquatch, then, or Wendigo maybe,
Yeah.
then you can kind of, push that to the side and maybe you'll get a serious conversation. You tell them what you want to do. And I think that can work,
Well, there hasn't been, has there been a serious Sasquatch film since maybe the 70s, but they were all low budget crap.
I was going to say, I don't even remember any good ones. What are you talking about?
You had to mention a Barking Creek.
Yeah.
I know there was one. Well, okay. So the guy who did the Blair Witch Project, he did a found footage Bigfoot movie.
Oh, really?
Called Exist, and it wasn't bad. He actually took an aspect of what I wanted to do, but I found a way around that anyway. But I think his name was Eduardo Sanchez. He was the director, and he did that film. There was also, it had a silly title, and they tried to make it serious, but the creature looked awful. And that was The Man Who Shot Bigfoot. No, The Man Who Killed Hitler, and then went after Bigfoot, something like that.
Yes, I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
It was with Sam Elliott.
Yeah.
And the thing is, there could have been something there, but you never know what something is going to come out like because of the care that they have to take with the creature. Like, for instance, if your creature budget is under $100,000, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
You are in trouble. Maybe
well, that's why
I might even say 500,000. You're in trouble. Because you have to take care, and then there has to be a hero suit at least a couple of stunt suits as well. So that's expensive.
Right. I always thought the Jack Link's beef jerky Sasquatch suit was one of the better ones I've seen that they use for those commercials.
Yeah. Well, you know what though, man? I don't like when they have kind of a human-esque face. I think the face should be more primate-like, more ape-like.
Yeah.
And just tweaking some of the features. Like I wanted to like the Yeti that they had in the Mummy movies. But they gave them a cat-like cranial structure, so that didn't work for me. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that was unfortunate.
Sorry.
That was unfortunate.
Okay. All right. Well, I want you to take a look. I got a couple of videos I want you to take a look at. Now, I showed these on my Sunday show, so maybe some of the people in the chat have already seen them, but I want to get your reaction. This one I call back fat Sasquatch. This is I'm not sure if this is, well, I'll just let you see what you think.
That's body shaming.
I am body shaming Bigfoot. All right, here we go. I got the sound turned off so we can see. He's got. There's a better. Look at those. Look at that back fat. He's got.
Man,
right.
He's not doing pause.
But he's got. They got a couple shots here of some dumb fake stuff. I mean, well, it's probably all fake, but we'll come back to this. Okay, so he's got the articulated butt. Look at that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's sad.
So you're not buying that, Kevin?
No, not at all.
I don't know.
Not at
man.
all.
Look, let's get. You need to see an extended shot of him walking. I think. Maybe
I actually talked to one Bigfoot guy once.
Look at that.
And he seemed to intimate that some of the stuff that people think is fake is actually real.
Really?
Yeah. And, you know, he's serious. Like, I've met 2 serious Bigfoot hunters. And, you know, I went to one guy and I said, look, I want to believe, help my unbelief.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, you know, but when they say that they've seen the creature 3 times and have yet to get a photograph, I'm just like, you know, I don't know what to tell you, dude.
Yeah, it's like, dude, you have a cell phone. What is this, 30, 40, 50 years ago when you don't have a cell phone? I mean,
and then, you know, if you look at cops, they carry a system. I don't think that camera system is only for them. I think anyone can buy one, you know.
Oh, yeah.
And so why aren't you wearing one of those every time you go out? I don't know.
Right.
You know.
Yeah. Well, I've become a skeptic, a pretty heavy duty skeptic for those reasons. George here says the Patterson Gimlin film is real. I don't think it is, but I know there's many people who do.
Is that original one that everybody's seen?
Yeah.
Because we talked about this a little bit on the Sunday show when I had you on, that the guy died and never, you know, admitted to anything. So no deathbed confession. But we have a guy who came out and said, yeah, I was the guy in the suit. This is how much they paid me. And apparently he had pictures of a suit in his trunk of his car or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I know. But then I think John Landis would tell another story, you know. And he apparently knows all about, you know, that footage. But it's like, you know, no one's going to agree. You know, I think the only thing we probably can agree with regard to these cryptid sightings is that original Loch Ness monster photograph was fake. It was debunked.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that was debunked.
Yeah.
But,
well,
you know,
I don't know how you develop a whole system of belief on something when the original image is fake. You know, undeniably fake.
But
right?
but you know, there are people in Africa who still say that they see dinosaurs in certain places. You know, now
or in the Amazon. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And who knows what's in the Amazon? So,
well, that's the truth.
Yeah.
You're not going to go joyriding in a boat down the Congo or down in the, you know, down the Amazon River, and
exactly.
But there's been legends about dinosaurs being alive down there since I was a kid, and probably before that, because I remember that stuff. Speaking of legends in their own mind, everybody welcome David Williams.
David Williams?
David who?
Hello. I'm Kevin Grevioux, the second most famous black man next to David Williams.
Next to David Williams.
All right, you guys, we have to take a second here and break down this this brand new, allegedly, Colorado Bigfoot film. I got to see this. I got a little bit of information on this that might shed some doubt on the believers. Anyway, here we go. This is off a train in Colorado. There's our buddy walking there. Now look when he sits down and puts his elbows on his knees. I just don't see how that's not a dude in a costume.
It's Kelsey.
Yeah. And the thing is, that's a slow-moving train.
That is a pretty slow-moving train, isn't it?
And then he might as well just be posing.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, because he faces right towards the train. It's not like he's sitting down with his back. He's like, ooh, what is that moving thing?
Yeah, look at him walk. He walks like a dude in a costume. And I told you guys this before we came on, that there's like a auto repair place like 2 miles down the road from this that's called Bigfoot Auto Repair or something like that.
Yeah.
No.
And they posted a meme shortly after this saying, we had nothing to do with this Bigfoot sighting. And they had a picture of a guy with Bigfoot feet on and hands changing a tire.
I bet you this was behind the scenes footage from Bigfoot and Wild Boy.
Wow.
Or the $6 Million Man episode.
Yeah.
Now, to bring up something else, though, you do know there are, I can't remember these two guys' names, but there are stories about the Nephilim or the Rephaim and about giants that may be still alive, living in the bowels of the earth.
Well, there's all that going around North America, right? That they found those like freaky, weird cylinder pyramid type things, and
exactly.
Yeah.
So at first I scoffed at it. I mean, they have legends of giant Indian warriors with 6 toes and 2 rows of teeth, things like that. And some people, some people who fancy themselves as biblical scholars think that they may still be alive,
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. I mean, one herbologist I talked to, I remember him telling me that he does believe in Yeti, but he says that as big as it's supposed to be, he can't see no one having not seen it.
Right. That's the problem I have.
And that's what I think. Yeah.
But I did hear about some lizard men living underground in Utah. I don't know if you guys have heard about that.
I don't know. I mean, to me, that dovetails into that whole UFO thing.
Yeah. Well, I was sitting at a table with Tom Rainey, comic book artist, and a couple other guys, and we were at some DC thing years ago.
Right.
And he brought up the lizard men of Utah, and I was like, I had never heard this, and I thought I'd heard all the urban legend type stuff and cryptid stories, and so I got the telling of apparently there's this, they live underground in this I thought he said underneath a shopping mall or something. I don't know if they mutated iguanas or lizards from atomic testing in the 40s and 50s. I don't know, but it's one of the many mysteries that befall us in this wonderful country.
Yeah.
There's your next screenplay, right there, Kevin.
Oh man, but I had a cool screenplay I was working on that connected all the conspiracies together, and then QAnon came out and just ruined the whole thing. I'm like, oh well.
I don't even know what QAnon is supposed to be. I've heard it, and I don't even know that what it actually is supposed to be. But that is kind of funny, because that's a great idea. That if you had all these sort of conspiracy and monster things all connected, and that's actually a pretty cool concept.
Yeah, exactly. And then, but when you start running into people who actually believe that there have been alien takeovers, and people that we know are actually aliens in disguise, I don't know. That just I have a friend of mine who is into that, and he'll send me these crazy videos of demons that I know are blurry pictures of action figures, because I have the action figures. And I try to tell him, and he won't believe me. I'm like, man.
Kevin, I'm sorry I sent you those. I won't send you any more.
Well, there's a couple of guys that are special effects guys, and they watch, their stuff's on YouTube, and they watch Bigfoot videos and other monster cryptid videos, and then debunk them by saying, oh, this guy's doing this. This is obviously a Photoshop effect, that blah, blah, blah. And it's actually kind of interesting. So if you're skeptical, like I am, but if you want to believe, it probably piss you off. So maybe you shouldn't watch it if you're...
Yeah.
So,
crazy.
let's bring up the old campaign. Alrighty, this is on Kickstarter now. You're thinking about using other platforms as well at some point, right?
Yes. After Kickstarter, I'm going to put it on Indiegogo, and others have reached out to me as well. You know, it
well,
seems like you have to kind of balance these things. But this is my first one, so everything's an experiment. You know what I'm saying?
Yep. I know the feeling. We've been down that road.
Yeah.
All of us have. So you're at 1186. So we're scoring a few here for you. We're getting a few points for you.
Yes.
So how did you end up? Well, I guess you're friends with Ron, aren't you, Garney?
Yes.
So you reached out to him.
We met at a convention one year, and he's into martial arts and weightlifting. I'm into weightlifting, not necessarily martial arts, but we struck up a friendship. And he seems like one of the real cool, comic book guys out there. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I appreciate that a lot.
Well, so so when you decided on was that your plan from the get-go? I mean, was there a point? Let me see. I'm trying to ask this delicately, but I'll just come out and say it. So you had a choice between David Williams and Ron Garney, and you just you said, you know what? I'm going to go Ron.
Dude, come on. No offense, Dave, but Ron Garney worked with Keanu Reeves.
Uh-huh.
Okay, I'll go Ron Garney.
Yeah.
Ron Garney worked with Keanu Reeves. David Williams watches Keanu Reeves movies.
Yeah, that's right. There we go.
Oh man.
Hey, but does Ron Garney do likenesses like I do?
I don't know. That's a pretty nice looking.
That's good.
Samuel L. Jackson right there.
That eye patch on and caught Nick Fury.
I thought I was doing Yaphet Kotto. So.
Oh, okay. Kevin, during our last show, I was going to bring this up and I forgot because some people in the chat were saying how disappointed they were that you actually have hair because everybody thought you had gone bald, and shaved the head and everything. But
you know what? Okay, so the history behind that. I mean, I'll tell you, my wife doesn't like it either. But the thing is, it gets cold here in California, Southern California at night. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
And I got tired as my hair started to gray. You could see it even when it was just overnight. And it's like as opposed to when it was black, you couldn't see. I could go a couple of days, but to sit up there and having to shave every morning,
Yeah,
it's not that difficult. You take a shower every morning.
But the thing is, though, man, I mean, that's something else you got to do. You know what I'm saying? It's one more thing. It's like, come on.
That's right. I got to get in the shower. Now I got to shave my head while I'm in there.
It's true. I just sacrifice actually washing from below the knees down because I'm like, really? Does it matter? No, my head does. I wear jeans all the time. Nobody cares about below the knees down.
Yeah, and then I personally think the shaving industry is a racket because they make these shavers look like lasers or cool things that guys would want. It's like, why not buy a bunch of them? And I'm like, man, what am I going to do with all these things? And it's like I bought the one that you put on your finger, and you just, go over your whole head. And I just got tired of doing that,
It just got wore out, man. It was just,
Yeah, and then I used to use a depilatory, and I had to cream my whole head, and then sit for what? You know about Magic Shave, David?
Yeah.
Yeah, you got to sit for like a half hour or an hour until it dissolves the hair, and then scrape it off. I'm like, you know what?
That does sound like work.
Yeah.
The way you're describing it is like, it's gonna let it grow
That's
out.
way more than I do.
Yeah, well,
But when you're spalled out naturally, like Aaron and I, it's not as hard either. So, because I tell you, I was so used to seeing you with no hair, I just assumed that you were part of us. The guys weren't just falls out. So I see you with hair, and I'm like, Oh, he has a choice. I see.
Yeah, that's right. You have a choice, Kevin.
You have a choice.
Jeez.
If I grow my hair out, my wife's, what the hell are you doing?
He was also going out for a part as Frederick Douglass, the Giant Slayer.
Hey, if there could be Abe Lincoln Vampire Hunter, why not?
Yeah.
You've kind of got that Frederick Douglass hair going right now. Oh, that's good. I don't think Frederick Douglass was quite that large, though.
Well,
I think he had more hair, to be honest.
Hey,
he's talking about you as your body.
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
not your hair. You're just this massive guy. I don't think Frederick Douglass is quite that.
But he's like the Ninja Turtle version. He takes some kind of radioactive something and he becomes all hulked out and stuff.
Oh my God.
Starts kicking ass all over the place.
Yeah, I want to circle back around and ask you about your experiences as a bouncer. Did you ever have to rough anybody up, throw them out, or was it? Oh, really?
Oh, yeah? Let's hear some
Give
stories.
us your best Roadhouse story here.
And you know, hey, how tall are you?
I'm only 6'2".
Okay, well, I'm only 5'10", so you got me. But it was probably the guys you roughed up were probably the short little 5'5" dudes that thought they were tough.
But, you know the truth. There's some truth to that because big guys, well, there's a whole, I guess I don't know if I call it psychology, but the way you have to really look at all this, like, a lot of times, you fight a big guy. He goes down pretty easy because a lot of people are afraid of him. And because they've been afraid of him, he's never really been hit before. You know what I'm saying? So, like, both you guys have kids. What was it like if you're roughhousing with your son or daughter and they might be like a year old and they might accidentally hit you in the nose and you go into a sneezing fit? You know what I'm saying? Yeah, stuff like that. You hit someone like that who's never been hit before, even if you just graze it, they start blinking all over the place. And, that's it. You just take them out, Other times, it's like, you give guys warnings because you can see they're going to get in trouble with somebody. Like, alcohol and women in a nightclub setting are a bad mix.
Sure.
And, man, you get some guy in there who is feeling himself or whatever, drinks too much, and touches some girl the wrong way while her dude is there. You know what I'm saying? And before you know it, you have to break it up. There were places where I can tell you we actually threw people down the stairs, and you're not doing that to injure them, but you don't know what they have in their hands. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Sure.
And so it's like the best way to protect yourself and subdue them is to just toss them, and let the stairs take care of it.
I didn't break his arm, the stairs did.
Okay, but here's the question. Here's the question, though. If you injure somebody in that situation, are you liable in any way, or you have protection from that?
Not if they throw, because, like, I've never thrown the first punch. Now, I might grab somebody, or force them to say, you got to go, especially if they do something egregious. Because if they throw a drink at somebody, now we don't mean tossing a drink, the liquid contents at them, but throwing the bottle or those little shot glasses or whatever, or you got to go. That's assault. So they can't say but so much, and it does come with with some risk because, hey, look, you might get blindsided. A guy might really break a bottle. A guy might really be laying for you after the club is closing or whatever, and that's happened a couple of times. But you handle it. There's no need in you don't go looking for it. But if it comes, but if it comes, you oblige.
Didn't you tell me you broke your finger
Yeah. I didn't break my finger. This one guy, he was much bigger than I was actually, and he got a little froggish. And I remember the incident was he wanted to come in the club, and we were closing. I said he couldn't, and so he was there with his girl and whatnot, and he was one of these old gangbangers, and you could tell by his effervescence the way he was dressed, and so I went inside, and then I was checking to see if everyone is cleared, and one of the bouncers came up to me and he says, "Look, the guy you were talking to earlier, he just slipped me $20 to let him in for the last half hour," and I'm like, "Okay, he can come in." And so when they went to open the ropes to let him in, he said, "Yeah, man, yeah," to the other guy. And he said, F him. I'm like, what? And so I said something, and to which he responded, "Oh, come down here and say that." So I left the top step all the way down. And I said, "What's up? What do you want to do?" And so he flinched the wrong way, and I just clocked him. And then he ran on top of all that. And so I ran after him, put him down, and was getting ready to hit him again. And he said, his mouth was bleeding. And he says, "Oh, you didn't hurt me." I'm like, "Okay, you know what? I'm tired of this." And before you know it, I feel my finger throbbing. And his snaggled teeth had cut open a gash on my knuckle, on my index finger. And that bad boy did not heal for 2 months.
Dude, those are like the worst, is like getting human bites, right? Because they're worse than getting bit by a dog.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's filthy,
But you didn't hurt him. You didn't hurt the guy as he's
he
spitting blood.
But
He's
but I'm not
running.
out there. Yeah, I'm trying to survive too. I'm just trying to save enough money to get to California. That's all.
Yeah.
This is gonna
Oh my
hurt you
God.
more than it's gonna hurt me.
Did you hurt my knuckle?
Yeah.
Now, you've done some voice acting, right?
Yes.
People were like, were you the? I'm sorry, I'm not a big X-Men cartoon fan, but were you the Beast? Is that correct, or am I mistaken?
No. I didn't do any X-Men work at all.
Okay.
I got into voiceovers. I think the first one I did was an AMD commercial, and then they lifted my voice from the actual on-camera work that I did. As far as cartoons, though, I think the first one I did was The Batman, where I played Solomon Grundy.
Oh, cool.
That's right.
Yeah. And then after that, I think I did Tarak, the Tamer. Yeah, in Earth's Mightiest Heroes.
Oh,
Is
okay.
that a Superman villain?
No, Terrax. You talking Marvel or Galactus Herald Terrax?
Yeah, that one.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, yeah. All right.
Aaron, if I could kick you right now, like off the street for your lack of this Marvel.
I know. That was a lame.
Give yourself one of your little video clips, a cannonball or something.
Yeah,
Come on.
cannonball myself for that. Yeah. Well,
Jeez.
yeah, but Terra.
Cool, I collect Marvel comics, but I don't know basic stuff.
No, we're gonna get into the weeds for a minute, but wasn't Terrax? Wasn't that a Kirby character or?
No.
No, did John Byrne create him?
Yes. Wait. No. He did it. I think it was Marv Wolfman.
Okay.
Well, you know what? It could have been Marv Wolfman and John Byrne. Yes. You're right. Because I think he appeared in. What was it? Was it FF 197?
No,
I think.
So like that'd have been late 70s, right? Because
Yeah. It was late 70s.
Eric Hutfield says Aaron is a fake geek girl. I know. I just embarrassed myself on that one. Wow. I was never a big FF guy though, so I was more of a Spider-Man guy. So that's my defense.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
So
Kevin hates Spider-Man.
What's that?
Kevin hates Spider-Man.
Yeah, he made that evident. He made that very clear to me last time we spoke. So I always thought Reed Richards like was too old. You know, it's like the dude's got gray hair. Why would I want to read a story about an old superhero? You know?
Oh man, but you know what though, man? And if you look at, well, like I said, I think my love for the Fantastic Four came from two places: that cartoon they had in the '60s, and then that Treasury edition my grandfather bought for me. And so, but if you read that and you see, I mean, I think that book was on fire from issue 36 all the way to 77. You know what I'm saying? You know, those. I mean, there were so many concepts and characters that were.
Oh yeah, that was
created for
tremendous
time.
run.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you'll ever have a run like that again.
No, I agree.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I'm getting called shallow. How am I shallow? Because I didn't know who I mistaken Terrax for. Jeez, man. And I knew the name. I don't know why I choked on that. I just is gonna haunt me for the rest of my life. Like that game-winning shot I missed in high school to go to the state tournament in basketball.
So what I'm hearing, Mr. Williams, is when it's your turn to pick the topic for Graybeards, it should be Fantastic Four characters.
Yep.
Yeah. It's coming up. It's coming
And
up.
everybody vote for Terrax.
Everybody in the Fantastic Four world, except for the Fantastic Four.
That's right.
If I can't draw the thing, then it's like I don't want to play anymore.
Oh.
No, you drew enough of things.
I know, but everybody loves them.
Yeah, really. I mean,
So Terrax, somebody posted in the chat, and I looked it up. So you were right. Marv Wolfman was the writer. John Byrne was the artist, but it was Fantastic Four 211 in 1979.
yeah, I'll be right back.
Kevin is such a nerd.
Y'all gotta do something.
Yeah, we can start backstabbing it now. I want to remind everybody that Kevin is here to promote this book called DJINNTARA, Rise of the Djinns. I guess the D is silent. Sort of a I Dream of Genie with guns. No, that's not really what it is. But the link is in the description of this video, so you can go there and back it at any time. We encourage you to do so. It looks like it's going to be really cool. Ron Garney's going to be supplying a cover for this edition, and it is a collection of previously small press published, so I don't think a lot of people have seen these. And it's like, what do you say, Andy, 130 pages, 120 pages?
120, 128, something like that.
Yeah, and there's going to be new material in it, so you want to get out there and back this thing, and you can do it by following that link in the description of this video. So, David, are you finished with that cover yet?
What cover?
The one we're looking at.
Yeah.
Well, so have you sent it in?
Yes.
Okay, so do you know the name of the magazine?
No.
Oh my God.
Kevin does.
Yeah, but Kevin left, so he's like he can't take it anymore. It's his launch stream, and he can't even take it anymore.
Nope.
What's the name of this book, Kevin, that I did this piece for? Or you know?
I think it's called.
See?
Okay, but what it is, it's a magazine.
Yeah, spit it out.
Yeah.
It's called Sun Heroes or something like that.
All right.
Well, that's kind of okay, I guess, but I want to know the actual name.
Let me see.
Jeez.
Let's see if I can find it. Hold on.
I would have never remembered that. It could have been right in front of my face on the computer, and I still wouldn't have remembered.
Well, I figured they're paying you for it, so maybe at some point you might know who you're billing for doing the cover.
I'm billing Kevin. No, just kidding. Or making me draw.
Oh
my gosh. Oh, Lord.
Okay, yeah, let me see.
Hellraiser says Aaron's going to take his comic books and go home. Thankfully, I already am home. But
okay,
That's
it's
right.
called Sun Hero.
Sun?
Sun Hero magazine.
So is it like a?
I'll send you the cover right now.
I was gonna say, David, did you color it, or did they get somebody else, or what's the deal with that?
Kelsey's coloring it right now.
Oh, okay, cool.
Which means he's supposed to be coloring it right now, but isn't coloring it right now.
You know he naps after graybeards. Leave him alone.
I know, he just had some etouffee after the show.
He made it in his own pot right out there in the swamp.
Mm-hmm.
Did you send it on Facebook, Kevin?
It's coming through right now.
Okay. All right. Ooh. Okay. So is this? How come all your things you're sending are tiny?
You know what? I think Facebook does something to them.
Send it through Twitter.
Oh, that's all right. This is. I mean, I just wanted to. Don't complicate things. Kevin's already left once. You don't want him to leave again.
That's right.
All right. Hang on a second here. All right. So, Sun Hero premiere issue, the history of Sun. Who's Sun Man?
Sun Man
Cool.
was an action figure that came out in the.
I remember that.
Yeah, came out in the late '80s, and it was really phenomenal the way this woman put it together. Because knowing what I know now about the action figure industry, it's expensive. You know.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we found that out. Yeah.
Yeah, it is expensive. You know, and she was able to get these things done and made some money. You know.
So is this a monthly or a quarterly? What is this?
I don't know what it's going to be. I don't know what it's going to be. I doubt very seriously if it will be monthly. I've looked into putting out a comic book or, you know, more to the point, you know, science fiction magazine, you know, encompassing a lot of different genres myself. And it's too much of an undertaking to do monthly. You know, it should either be biannually or quarterly for me.
So this is like, obviously it's got a bunch of different articles and you're the featured article kind of thing. But there's other like news about, you know, the industry or, you know, like you said, the sci-fi stuff and things like that.
Yes.
So do you, oh, my dog is driving me nuts. So when do you have a publication date for when your cover, David's cover, but of you and your interview is going to be in there?
No, not yet. He hasn't told me that yet. You know, I did the interview with him this past Friday. So, you know, he'll take that, write the article, and then he'll let me know when we do it.
All right. So we have Sun Hero here, but the question is, do you remember this?
Yes, I do. That was, wow. That was from a long time ago. I know that's from the 70s.
Yeah, early 70s, man. It's on sale back then it was on sale every 2 weeks.
I only remember it after I got into the comic book industry because there's some kind of, I don't want to say there's a correlation between that and the comic book buyer's guide, but they were kind of like those fanzines, and when you had where you had to know someone in order to get a copy, in order to subscribe to it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
you didn't see it on the magazine stands.
Yeah, it was really weird. I ran into one copy of this at some really just out of the way drugstore someplace. I mean, you would not go to 7-Eleven or any of those places and find something like this. It was just some mom and pop drugstore, and I walked in there and they didn't have comic books, but they had a lot of sci-fi and horror magazines, and they had a copy of this sitting there, and that's where I picked up the one that I got, and it had some nice articles on, you know, like supernatural comic stuff, like this Dead Man and the Spectre, and you know, Brother Voodoo and things like that. So I thought it was the coolest thing in the world, right? Because they're talking about old horror movies, but also, you know, horror comics and stuff. And but yeah, that was the only copy I ever saw. That thing it just happened to be in this rando drugstore. I don't even know what you're doing.
I've seen a couple of copies, but I've never been able to buy one. Was never able to buy one.
Well, thank goodness for eBay, because we can always go back and relive our youth.
Yeah,
right?
you know, in the comic book buyer's guide, you know, remember the comic reader?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You know, those were, you know, those early fanzines were really cool. You know, because there was no one to talk to about comics.
Right.
Yeah.
So when you found a fanzine like this, you devoured it. You know.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know where I first saw the buyer's guide. Probably at one of the first comic shows I went to, you know, and I was like 15 or 12 or whatever I was when I went.
Right.
And but I had a subscription to the buyer's guide, and you'd get that. It was really exciting. You get that newspaper would show up every week or every 2 weeks, whatever it was, and that was how we found out, because there was no comic shops, right? It was
Exactly.
if you wanted to find out about what was coming out, or especially projects that weren't necessarily comic books, like an artist was doing a portfolio or an art book was coming out on this guy, or he was self-publishing, you know, or indie publishing his own collection of stories, that's where you saw ads for it, was in the buyer's guide. I ordered a ton of stuff out of the buyer's guide that I would not have known about if it hadn't been in there.
Yeah, and that's where, you know, a lot of rumors would start too.
Yes.
You know, rumors about what was really going on behind the scenes. Like, I think it was the comic book buyer's guide that first intimated that Sabretooth was Wolverine's father. You know what I'm saying? And everyone was like, oh, really? You know? And there was never any confirmation about that, you know? But, you know, years later, we found out that, okay, well, it happened. But yeah, I remember, that was a good publication. I liked it. I liked it a lot.
Yeah, those are kind of the drawbacks, and maybe I'm just looking at things through rose-colored glasses. But you look at the accessibility that the internet and social media gives us, but it's taken away stuff like this that used to be really fun and exciting part of the whole collecting experience, if you will. I sound like an intellectual talking about comic books, but when you first got that call from Marvel, did you ever go up to New York and to the offices or anything? Or was everything just FedEx and over the phone?
Everything was FedEx, you know, and email. The first time I went to the offices was probably my first New York Comic Con, when I was doing New Warriors. You know, I made an appointment to stop by and see, because my direct editor was Axel. I didn't meet Tom Report there, even though he had chimed in on a couple of emails. I got to meet one of my other editors, two other editors, some other people. I think Brian Hitch was there when I was there. I got to meet Flo. You know, Flo.
Oh, cool.
Steinberg, yeah.
Steinberg?
Yeah, so I got a picture with her.
When was this? What year was this about?
This was probably 2008. I'm thinking it was 2008.
Yeah, that's
maybe
because
2007. Something like that. 2007 or 2008.
Yeah, because I always, I don't know, for some reason, I think because we're about the same age, and I've always my first trip to Marvel was like 89 or 90 or something, you know?
Right.
And it's like, of course, you were following a different path at that time, but I always think that, you were probably working in comics in the 90s, but you weren't. You were working in film in the 90s, and you got into comic books later.
Yeah.
Now, I think you said this before, last time I interviewed you, but you did a comic book apparently that John Malin drew, right?
Yes. I was working New Warriors, and he came in and drew 2 issues after Paco. I think his name is Paco Medina.
Yeah,
After
Paco
Paco
Medina.
Medina left for a time, and then John Malin came in and did 2 issues. You know, they were pretty good too. You know, I liked the style.
Yeah.
But then he was off, and then Paco came back.
So how long did you write the New Warriors? How many issues was
It was 20 issues.
Oh, so you did like 2 years on that book.
Yeah. It was 20 issues, and you know, it was a challenge. You know, I remember it's funny. You know, I thank God for Joe Quesada recommending me for the job, but I also didn't want the job, and I remember writing him and saying that, you know what, I don't know how to take this. I never in my wildest dreams thought I would be writing the New Warriors. And I remember telling him, this book has been canceled 3 times. It's going to be canceled a 4th time. So, you know, it's not that I'm being set up to fail, but I think what it was, Marvel was in that transition period. I should say comics where it was in that transition period where they like to throw things against the wall to see what stuck. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And they would, you know, do a new #1 and revamp the series, you know, to accommodate that, you know, particular way of doing things. And I just don't think it worked. And of course, you know, they didn't stay powerless for long. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But it's like, wow.
Were you at least thankful that you were when you were working on New Warriors, you were sitting there going, well, at least I'm not working on Power Pack like David Williams?
Oh, damn.
Oh my goodness.
I'm just curious if that ever crossed your mind.
Oh no, you know.
No, Aaron. He was like, well, New Warriors, it's better than Excalibur.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of truth in that, man. There's a lot of truth in that. Oh my! Hey,
I got to take off, guys. Aaron, thank you for having me. Kevin, it was great meeting you actually in person like this. And I'll see you next Wednesday at 3 p.m. on the Dennis and Andy Show.
Okay, hey, that sounds great.
All right, and Mr. Brohawk, it's always nice when you join. Love talking with you. So
he's apparently asleep or getting a sandwich again.
He must be. I don't know. He's going to the bathroom. All right, guys. I'll catch you later. Everybody have a good night.
All right. See you, Andy. Thanks.
Get out,
man. Bye-bye, guys.
Oh, there. He's awake now. There we go. Here's one right here. So, oh, shoot. I just lost it. So this was like, were you saying it was like the 4th series?
Yeah, it was the 4th volume of New Warriors. And I remember telling Joe, it's like, this thing has been canceled, you know, 3 times before. And I never thought the 1st volume should have been canceled. You know, that was one of the rare times when you have a new series that comes out and it is just hitting. You know what I'm saying? Mark Batley's art, Fabian Nietzsche's writing, all that. You know, I was like, this is a good book, you know, and I don't know, you know, why they don't do that more, you know.
Well,
I really don't.
I think what was going on, especially during this period of time, was sales were so low across the board that it was almost every book was on the verge of failure, right? And you're hoping that one would kick up past that certain whatever it was. I don't know if it was 30,000 or 35 or 25, whatever the number was. And it was like, aside from, you know, that was, of course, that's always been the problem throughout the history of comics is you've got these few books, Spider-Man, FF, X-Men, you know, Batman, whatever, that are selling and they're in the comfort zone, and you're trying to raise the rest of your line up, and it's so hard, even if it's a good book. You know, I've worked on some really good books that just sold like crap. So, you know, it's just, a lot of times it's a numbers game, right? It's like, I remember Howard Chaykin telling me one time, he said, you know, there's not even enough comic fans to fill a football stadium. And I was like, I don't think that's exactly right. But in in sort of a, it's exaggerated, but it's hyperbole a little bit. But in a way, it's true. We don't have the, you know, when we were kids, or even in the '60s, there was, you know, the distribution was, the numbers were just, the circulation, excuse me, was huge on these books.
Yeah.
And everybody was just sort of, that's kind of, you went through that stage as a kid growing up where you read comic books from, even if you weren't really into that stuff, there was always that period of time where, you know, where you're anywhere from 9 to 16 that you're in there and you're reading some comics. And that's sort of all, you know, evaporated, and it, you know, the whole dynamics of that have changed with what kids are spending their money on and young people, and so it was just such an incredible struggle after the collapse of the industry in the late '90s to get regular sales on these second and third tier books that actually had value, but you know, it was just hard to get to chase down the numbers to keep them going.
Yeah, and I don't know what the reason for that was, because I think that for me, I'm trying to think during that time period, I became upset about the expensive comics then. And I didn't think, I thought that they were doing too many gimmicky things. But, you know, you compare what they were doing in the 90s with what they're doing now. Man, the 90s look pretty good now. You know what I'm saying? Which is really sad.
It was the new golden era of comics.
Yeah, because at least then, comic books knew what they were. They were action adventure stories. You know what I'm saying? And that's all they were. They were like, if you want to do a film comparison, they were like, you know, Saturday morning matinees in pamphlet form.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Saturday matinees in pamphlet form.
Exactly.
And, you know, there was a lot of action and all that. But now, I mean, you know, David was showing me this once. DC had a scene with Batgirl where she's in the bathroom for 2 pages. and the thing is, it's silent. And it's like, how does an editor, you know, waste that real estate? Let the writer waste that real estate on something like that.
You know, you got to believe to a certain extent, and I don't necessarily have any particular insight into this other than, you know, what I observed when I was working for, you know, DC and Marvel. But there's something we've always talked about, was that, you know, it became when the biggest deal became the trade paperback. You take your 2-issue story that, you know, you and I would have read in the '70s, or David in the '80s. That was just jam-packed full of good stuff, and suddenly that two-part story gets stretched out into 6 issues so they can do a trade, and now you've got 2 and 3 page parts where the Batgirl's in the bathroom, you know, because they're just trying to pad the story out, you know, and it's like, why can't you pad it out with a big fight scene? You know, why does it have to be boring, dumb stuff like this? But
exactly, I have no idea, and then they complain about the sales.
Yep.
And it's like, well, you're not giving people what they buy comic books for.
Exactly. You know? Well, I was working on Damage, which was part of DC's. It was after the New 52. I think it was. Gosh darn it! I always forget what it was called. Like New Universe. It wasn't New Universe because that was Marvel, but it was something like that. And they were trying to introduce new characters, and one of them was Damage. This, you know, like this Hulk type character that DC desperately wanted for their line. And the way it was set up was, it was set up Marvel style, old Marvel style, where you'd get the plot, and they really wanted the emphasis to be on the artist doing storytelling, and then and so I would get these really sort of bare bones scripts, and I got to fill in all the action. So everything I did in this comic, no, I'm not going to take anything away from Robert Venditti, who wrote it, who did an excellent job. He's a great writer.
Yeah.
but he would say, okay, dialogue, character. Okay, now Superman comes in and Damage and Superman fight for 9 pages, and then they come out here, and then I got to go in and interpret that and make it as wild and crazy as I wanted to, as long as I got them to that point where he could,
Right.
start up the dialogue and character stuff again. And it was a little too late when I got onto the book, but it was a great creative experience, because you felt like you were doing old style comics again, from like the 70s and 80s, and it was all about the action. It was all about the excitement and the intrigue and all the stuff that you'd want from a comic book, and yet again, because they were second or even third tier characters, new characters are being introduced. We got about a little less than 2 years out of them, and that was it. That was the end of the line, and that's right back to the same old. So
Yeah, see.
it seems like the only way to get, and this is really interesting, and I think part of it is because of how the industry is just destroying itself right now with their poor choices. But you couldn't ever get a new character off the ground at the big two. I mean, it was so rare that it ever hit. But now here we are in this indie comic movement that's doing pretty well. I guess we call it the Iron Age of comics, where that's what people want, because they're fed up with what Marvel and DC are doing to the characters they love, so they want something new, and it's opened this incredible opportunity to introduce new characters, and people are actually wanting to see new stuff, which hasn't really been the case for the past, majority of the 50 years since Stan and Jack, and
I agree. And one of the things that was really puzzling too, it's not just the people like Marvel and DC. They also love superheroes, and I think the fact that a lot of the independent companies wanted to stay far away from superheroes was really a mistake. There's always room for more, and now that Marvel and DC's heroes have been tainted, I think that independents can come along. Like, I don't care if it's IDW or Dynamite. They can come along, Dark Horse, and do some new superhero stuff and see what happens. But these guys are just afraid to do even that, and I don't think that's a good idea.
Yeah, I don't necessarily think it's ever. I mean, it is to a certain degree with mainstream Marvel and DC. It always has been that those are superhero companies, and that's what people go there for. But I still think that if you can put together a good story with interesting characters and good artwork, that you got a chance, right? And the IP is important too. You can have a good story, but you could have a character that just doesn't have visual appeal, or maybe doesn't come off as being that interesting, and that can screw up your plans as well. So there's all those things that have to be taken into consideration when you're putting something out there, especially like we are as independents, because we don't have as much room for error, because we don't have any deep pockets funding our mistakes. We've got the fans out there that either like what we're doing or they don't, and then it's on to the next thing. So but it is nice that we do have that opportunity, and I do think that the right material, regardless of the subject matter, or I should say regardless of the genre, can be successful, because we've seen it.
I agree.
We've seen it.
I agree.
So, and speaking of that, let's take a look at your campaign. The reason Kevin is here tonight is to promote his newly launched today comic, and let me bring it up here. There it is. I hate to do this to you again, but I'm going to have you go ahead and give me the elevator pitch again, in case we have new people that rolled in.
DJINNTARA, really cool story about a terminally ill police detective who discovers that she's a member of an ancient race of genies, called Jinn. And, she has this dilemma. Does she use these powers, to heal herself, which might lead to being corrupted by the power, or does she reject it outright? And so it's about that internal struggle, about how she comes to find herself through having these powers and use them in her work. And I think it's something that's really interesting, and I want to share it with people.
So to dig a little deeper into this story-wise, so obviously at some point when she comes to the knowledge of the fact that she has these genie powers or this connection, uh, she's not just arresting average bad guys. She's starting now to deal with these supernatural elements as well, right?
Well, what it is that she's in search of a serial killer who has been terrorizing the DC metropolitan area, and killed a lot of people. But there's this theme behind it. This theme about ancient Sumeria, these jinn, and it seems to be very, very ritualistic. And when they think they have this, this serial killer cornered, she arrogantly goes in there by herself and wounds up almost getting killed. And her husband, who is also a detective, goes in to get her, and he is killed. And now she's distraught. But not only that, she discovers that she also has, a terminal case of cancer, and it is inoperable. So not only did she lose her husband by being arrogant, now she's dying as well. And then decides, hey, look, before I die, I'm going to find this killer who took my husband, So now it becomes kind of personal along with her job. But, then something happened, an event happens that basically we think is going to kill her. And she winds up being miraculously healed. And that's where she finds these powers. Finds out that she has these powers. But now that she has them, what exactly does that mean for her life? What is the extent of these powers, you see? And so once we go there, then that's where the story really begins. I don't want to give too much away.
Sure. And so this is, would you say about 130 pages, 120?
Yeah, it'll be probably 120 pages, 130 pages.
So you've got 3 books that were small press several years ago that you're collecting here with new material.
Yeah. The last issue came out in January, I think, 2022.
Okay.
And now I want to collect them all in a trade paperback.
And so we have a couple of reward levels here. You've got your digital copy. You can get the physical trade paperback.
Yes.
You got a Swaggo box, which for $60 you get a bunch of extra stuff in there along with the trade and the digital, the bookmarker, sticker, postcard, trading card, 8x10 poster.
Yes.
You can get them signed. You got T-shirts. Get a T-shirt along with the signed book. And which I think is really cool about these, and I know David Williams is going to be making use of this, is for $150 you can have Kevin give you your answering machine message. You're not answering machine, but whatever. What would you call it? Whatever. On your phone, right? You can get him to leave you a scary message, or
I save all the ones that he leaves me.
You don't have to buy them. You got them all.
I just use it as blackmail.
And this other one's really cool because you pay $400 and you can call up David, and he'll put you in touch with Kevin, and you can talk to Kevin for 30 minutes about the industry, about movies, comics, how to get into it, his experiences. I just think that's really cool. So what? Okay,
in a less polite way.
Yeah, David actually has to pay you to call him, but if you, excuse me. All righty, so we're at we're at 12:26. Yeah, we're at 12:26, 24 backers right now. So you guys, the link to back this campaign is in the description of this video. So feel free to hit that and take you right over there. And Art to Bear is in the chat. He says, the new book looks fantastic, Kevin. Everyone back this bad boy tonight.
Oh, wait, thank you, Art.
Here's a good question from Comics for Life. It says, what inspired your story? What made you go down this path with this particular character?
You know, a couple of things. You know, number one, you know, when I come up with a storyline, I look at what hasn't been done yet or what hasn't been done right. You know, maybe to my satisfaction, sounds a little arrogant, but you know, we all have our different subjective, you know, things about that. And you know, I was looking at an episode of I Dream of Jeannie, and it's like, my goodness, you know, with those powers, what could she do? And so, you know, I'm thinking about it. I'm like, you know what if I turn this character into some kind of, you know, she went out and did her own thing, you know, and, you know, righting wrongs or whatever. And then I came up with DJINNTARA, that, you know, a person who gets these powers, you know, unbeknownst to her, or is, you know, born that way, doesn't discover them until you know, later on in life. And now that you have them, what do you do with powers of this magnitude? You know, how does that affect your life from here on out? And so really it's about consequences and choices when, you know, given the responsibility of a power like that. And that's what I liked.
Now,
and plus I wanted to shoot a movie in DC. So.
Okay, I got two questions here for you. The first one is, does this book get into any sort of the genie mythology about how that all works, and or did you create your own sort of genie mythology?
I did a lot of research on the different types of genies or jinn, what their goal is, and there's another spiritual aspect because my character is actually a Christian, and so when you start looking at how we're forbidden to engage in,
that really complicates it. Yeah,
exactly. In soothsaying or any sorcery, things like that. Yet she's part of this world. How does that play? You know. So I have some, you know, really interesting theological discussions, you know, about things such as that.
Right.
So,
no, that's cool.
Very interesting. Yeah.
Now you had said earlier that you are trying to put this together as a pitch for either a movie, television series, whatever.
Yes.
Having been through this with Underworld and you know, I, Frankenstein and some other things, how confident are you able to go into something like this and say, I think I got a pretty good chance to make this work, or is it just a complete crapshoot if you get lucky or not?
Well, you know, it's kind of hard to say because there are no guarantees.
Sure.
But I think you can have a reasonable amount of confidence that you can get it into the right hands, you know. Now, what happens after getting into the right hand is, you know, one for the ages because anything can happen. You know, I had one script that got optioned, and we got, I think it was 12 million to shoot. And the director wanted like 20, at least 23, you know, or 26. And because we couldn't get that other money, well, then the project just faded away. Right. And my thing is that was a mistake because what I've learned about peers of mine and their, you know, their paths is that a lot of times you don't get the money that you want to do your project. You have to make do. And that's why you see a lot of filmmakers don't want to be filmmakers who never made it because I don't want to use the word capitulate, but sometimes you might have to adjust if you don't get the money you need. Right. And they're unwilling to because their creative vision is so, you know, stringent, you know, and you have to learn to be more pliable than that. You really do.
Is this something that you would have to be that you would go for being attached as a director on it, or are you just looking to get the thing made.
I am looking to, for this because I had someone in mind to direct it. This, I'm just going to, produce and play a role. That's it.
Now,
yeah.
Do you have someone in the chat wanted to know? Do you have somebody in mind for the lead, or you probably at this stage you probably wouldn't even mention it if you did? But I guess
Yeah.
just
I mean, of course, there are people that I would, love to take a crack at this,
Right.
But are we going to get them? I mean, who knows?
Well,
we're not at that stage yet.
That's an excellent point. That's an excellent point, though. Do you have like, I'm not suggesting that there's a book, but just metaphorically, you come in with a budget of whatever it is, right? Is there like actors and actresses you look at and say, okay, well, there's just no way we can afford these people, so they're off the list, and you kind of have like tiers of people that will fit into your budget?
Yes. Yeah, there is an actual list that exists.
Okay, there
with
is a
people's
real
marquee value, with people's marquee values. But you have to decide whether or not, your production can afford them,
right,
or whether or not they're willing to come down on their price to work on your film. Like, it's long been known that, if you pay Bruce Willis X amount of dollars, you can get him, this is before he got sick, obviously,
right,
but you can get him to be in your film. The thing is, for the amount of money you're paying him, you have to shoot him out in like 3 days or a week, something like that. You know what I'm saying?
yes.
And is that going to be possible? I don't know.
So now I know, I mean, I know big picture how, a film is budgeted, right? Just from my own experiences, but I haven't actually done it on a level like obviously what you're doing. But how tight? Because there's always delays or something that's going to cost more money than you thought it was going to cost.
Yeah.
So if you're trying to divvy up, let's say you want to go for that one big star at whatever level that person is at.
Yes.
And so how much wiggle room do you have to give yourself with, I mean, because you can only, I'm trying to figure out how to word this correctly, but you can only be so specific on your budget, right? Until you're actually, the money's going out the door paying for stuff. So how much is there like a percentage or a wiggle room that you have for your actors, right? That you can say, we can go above this, but now we're getting into actually what the cost of the film's going to be. And I mean, how tight do you have to be on that?
Pretty tight, because you have your above the line costs and below the line.
Yeah.
And you might only have so much for above the line because you only have so much for below the line, which you need to actually shoot. So this is how much money you have to play with in order to procure your cast, and that's just the way it goes,
Now, is there chances on these lower budget films, and it's funny to say like a $30 million film is a low budget film, but or less, that if you can somehow talk in a major star that get attached to it, that you can go in and say, okay, now give us 10 million more because so and so is, we talked Brad Pitt into doing this.
Yeah. That can definitely happen. But if that happens, you would think that the actor who got you that, that much more money would also share in that in some shape or fashion. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And, but those are just the way things happen. I remember this story, and I don't have firsthand knowledge, but I heard this story about Quentin Tarantino and Harvey Weinstein, that Pulp Fiction was supposed to be done for $25 million. And one day Harvey called him in and said, I got some good news, some bad news. Good news is we're shooting your film. The bad news is you get $6 million. And they go from $25 million to $6 million. It's like, my goodness, what kind of rewriting do you have to do? But, you know, he wound up winning the Palme d'Or.
Yeah. Now
So,
that's interesting because now you've got a situation. I would assume that, you know, because he had some fairly big name actors in there,
exactly.
and it's like, how do you work that $6 million to keep these guys happy and still pay for your film? That must have been a pain in the
Oh,
butt,
yeah.
man.
I mean, yeah. I mean, but if you think about it, you know, your biggest cost was going to be Bruce Willis.
Right.
And Sam Jackson wasn't going to cost you a mint, you know.
Well, you had Travolta in there, and I know
Yeah,
Travolta was on the skids a little bit, but
exactly. And so the thing is, you pay Bruce Willis his money, you can get everyone else cheaper. And if they like your script, they'll say, "Hey, look, I just take scale," you know, and that works as well. So
how often are these guys, actors, willing to do that? I mean, because I mean, I get the artistic side of it. You're like, wow, this script is brilliant, but at the same time, it's like I get X amount of dollars every time I do a movie. Why should I take less just to do this? I mean, is there that much interest in doing something that they actually believe is really good rather than just earning a paycheck? That there's a lot of guys that
there is risk, but the way the actor, you know, side of it works is that films are seasonal, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So the thing is, everyone wants that summer blockbuster. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Everyone wants the summer film. Once you procure that summer film, then you look down the trough and see what else is coming up that you might want to be a part of for the rest of the year. Because
Right.
you'll probably only do, depending upon, you know, your status as an actor, you know, if you're big time, you can probably only do 1 or 2 films a year. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Or if you can appear in, like, let's say a Friends film, and you'll do a week on that, you know, make $500,000 or $1 million, things like that. You know, if you're a smaller actor, you can do multiple things, but
Sure.
you want that film that's going to be able to pay you nice residuals when there were good residuals. And so you just have to balance that out, you know,
Yeah.
what film you're going to take when.
Sir Nolan Lockhart says, "Back the swag a box. Hail, fellas."
Hey,
Thank you for that.
how you doing, sir? Thank you, Sir Nolan.
Yeah, we got this creeping up to 28 backers, 1,736. So
Cool.
we're gaining some steam here. We're gaining
Yes,
some
we are.
steam.
Yes, we are.
Let's see. We already asked you that. Let's see here. Okay. I wanted to mention, we've mentioned this before, but I didn't the last time we went through this, that you got Ron Garney,
Yes.
superstar artist Ron Garney will be doing the cover for the trade, right?
Yes.
So now, do you have have you put Ron on a deadline? Say, Ron, I need this cover.
No, not at all. Not at all.
You're not pressuring him yet.
No, not yet.
Okay. All right. I just want to, I just got to see him at, he did a show up here in Portland, Rose City Comic Con in September, and got to talk to him a little bit. And it's being stuck out here on the West Coast. It's like, it seems like everybody is back East, and I never get to see anybody except on the rare occasions. Cause I'm too old and grumpy to travel too far anymore. So I kind of
I understand. I just got back from Baltimore, and I haven't been to Baltimore in a long time. You know.
So you were at the show, the Baltimore Comic Con?
Not Baltimore Comic Con. It was called Stellar Con, which is outside of Baltimore.
Okay.
And that was a fun show.
Now, do you how often do you do shows a year?
If I had to put a number on it, I would say about 6 to 8, you know, and I don't always do Comic-Con. Comic-Con can be a bit of an ordeal.
Are you talking about San Diego
Say,
specifically, or just Comic Cons in general?
yeah. See, yeah, San Diego Con, it can be a bit of an ordeal. And, you know, especially if you set up. Like, it's been made easier for me if I'm promoting a film. And they pay for my hotel, which is right next to the convention center. You know, that's good. But I would say, like, between 6 and 8 conventions a year. This year, I've been pretty busy.
Do you get invited because of Underworld, or is it a combination of, you know, you promoting your new book, but obviously Underworld's always going to be a factor because you're going to have fans that are come up
Exactly.
and
Underworld is the reason why I'm invited so many places.
But you're able to, you know, push your books while you're there.
Exactly. You know, pretty much I oscillate between the film and the comic book world pretty easily, you know. And so I know that my Underworld credibility, you know, credit gets me into a lot of these places. But the comic book stuff is where I have the most fun, you know. That's what I like doing the most, you know.
Well, it's kind of like what you said in our the first interview we had when we had you on a couple of weeks ago, was that you know, all the compromise you have to make and how many hands get involved in a film, whereas it's more personal with the comics because that's your baby and that's something you have control over and can make it what you want it to be.
Exactly.
And so even though the money is better in Hollywood, the creative satisfaction can be better in comics.
Exactly. That's the way I feel. You know, like someone asked me in an interview recently, you know, what's it like working on these films, or how does it feel to see your, you know, your vision come from your head and onto the silver screen? And, you know, I told them, you know, quite frankly, that it doesn't really feel like you think it does. You know, a lot of people think, and I thought this too, that when you do something that's that lofty, like getting a movie made, you're gonna feel euphoric. And I don't. I never really have. And, you know, I mean, it's cool, don't get me wrong, but that feeling of euphoria, I don't think so. And, you know, I think that the best illustration of what Hollywood can be like is when, you know, you're on the red carpet. You know, when you're doing the junkets, they're there to talk to you, and you're being interviewed and you're being celebrated. Yeah, it feels good, but as much pageantry as there was when you're doing the you know, the red carpet, if you come back 30 minutes after the film has started, you go outside and it's like no one was ever there. You know, it's desolate. You know, you see the velvet ropes maybe, but you see, you know, trash, you know, blowing by. You know, it's dark because all the lights are out. And it's like, my goodness, you know, is this what it's really like? And it's like, yeah. And I will tell you, to an extent, you know, this is something I've felt, and this is just a little spiritual. I don't know if man is meant to be euphoric about anything except for God. You know what I'm saying?
I agree.
And so I think that's one of the reasons why the euphoria is lacking when I'm doing something that most people think is this lofty. It's not all that, you know. It really isn't.
When you dream about it, it's more euphoric when you're dreaming about it than when you're actually in it and doing it, because then you just become part of it and it's, you know, it's not a big deal.
Exactly. The fantasy is always better than the reality.
Yep. Dustin Rogers for $4.99. Thank you, Dustin. Appreciate that. He says, Underworld is my top 3 vampire movies. Thank you, Kevin, for all the enjoyment with that property.
Dustin, you're very welcome.
And let's see. There was okay. I wanted to. I want to show you something that.
Okay.
Yeah, let's see if I do. I still have it over here. I think I do. Okay, so I have this thing on my Sunday show that I do called Precious Moments from Yesteryear, and I take short clips from films and TV shows and cartoons, whatever,
Right.
and have a little bit of fun with it. So I was going to do this when I had you on 2 weeks ago, but we got talking about stuff, and pretty soon time was over, and I never ran it. So I'm going to run this for you. I ran it this Sunday, but now that you're here, I'm going to run this for you because I have a question about it. But go ahead and take a look at this if you.
We ambushed. Death dealers, 3 of them.
And the candidate?
We lost him.
You lost him.
Okay.
So there you are on. I assume that was you, or was it a body double? But I assume it
No,
was you.
no, that was me.
Okay, so you got to walk buck naked through this stage, carrying. I guess that's probably not a real guy. It's probably a prop.
No,
guy, right?
he was real. He was real.
Oh, he was real. So you got a real guy over your shoulder. And you got to walk buck naked through. I mean, do you have to like psych yourself up to do that, or you just like, whatever?
I tried to talk Lynn out of it, but he explained to me, it's like, here's where I am, and he's telling me, the camera composition. He says, if you don't do this, I don't have a shot. And I'm like, oh. So I had to put on this sock, and wrap it around, blah, blah, blah. and at first, they wanted me to carry him like this. I'm like, there is no way. It's too heavy. No, I got a bad back. Now, I'll stick him over my shoulder, But I felt sorry for the guy because he's
hanging right there on your butt.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, oh, man.
Oh, God, that's funny. Okay, so then the question is, how many takes did that take?
You know what, man? I'm going to say 3, 2 or 3, because, barring nothing catastrophic with the camera or the lighting or, maybe a hitch with the, the tracks,
What's your experience? Okay, this is a 2-parter for you. What's your experience with, as an actor, your expectation when you go in and do a scene that, how many takes is average?
Well, like I said, I think 3 is probably the average, barring
right.
Nothing catastrophic with camera or whatever, or no one flubbing their lines. Like one of the things that, you always want to do, you don't want to get that perfect take. And then you do one for safety, in case there's anything wrong with it. But like I said, other things can happen too.
What did I miss? Start over.
David just woke up from his nap. Okay, so when you're directing...
Yes.
Now, I've heard people tell stories about Clint Eastwood. It's kind of like, they do the take, and he's like, all right, let's move on. And the actor's like, don't you want to do another one? He's like, why do you want to waste everybody's time? And that kind of thing. And so as a director, are you, how free are you with your actors to let them interpret the scene? Or how much do you come in with a expectation of exactly what you want out of a given scene?
I come in with an expectation, but I'm always flexible too, because a lot of times it's about how an actor hits something. You know what I'm saying? Or what they're thinking when they think the thoughts, of what you've written. And then some of the dialogue you have might be cool, but to certain actors they might be tongue twisters. And so, for me, I try to get that one take. But it is not wise to just, do the one take and bounce.
Right.
2, okay. Like, especially when you get to the end and it's about time, you're looking at that monitor, and then you have to, when you yell cut, you got to look at that, playback again.
Mm-hmm.
And I might have to look, over here, then over here. The guy boom is in the shot. Now
Right.
you can go in 40% more, but it's like that might not give you what you need,
Right.
but you have to be flexible, especially with independent film.
Yep. Jimmy Reyes wants to know who created Underworld. Of course, we know that's you
Yeah.
that created him. But there was another question here that I thought was actually interesting. Was that,
Yes.
do you still own these characters, or is it owned by the studios now?
Sony Pictures. Sony Pictures owns it.
So that's part of the deal. When you get the green light on the movie, you sell the deal,
Yeah.
and that's just part of it.
Yeah, it's their film now. You could have said Screen Gems at one point, or Lakeshore. But once the national distributor comes in, it's pretty much theirs. And so now Sony is the one who owns everything.
Okay.
But you have to understand too that you have to get whatever happens. Sometimes the price of admission is your IP. It's your film, and you might have to give the first one or the second one away just to get in. And it might be frustrating, but that's the name of the game.
Yep.
I know writers who had the script in their hand and they wanted to be the lead in it, and they had a producer willing to pay them the money to shoot the film, and they said, not if I can't be the lead. And so they were like, oh well,
I don't
and
want it that
25
bad. Right.
and 25 years later they're not doing much, and that script is still in their drawer.
Yep.
And they always wonder, if I had just relented and said, okay, I'll take the deal, they might have been in a different place in their career. And one of the things that I realized early on, if I'm going to insist in being in a film that I've written, I'm not going to be number one on the call sheet.
Right.
Insist on being number one on the call sheet. I'm going to insist on being number 5 to 10 on the call sheet. And if you do that, they're all too willing to give you that, because roles 5 through 10 or 6 through 10, no one really cares about. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
They're going to leave those roles alone. As long as they can cast it based on the top 5, they're good. And as long as I can be in it for run of show, I'm good. So that's what I did with Raise,
Right. Well, there's always that sort of sacrifice, and I've talked to people over the years, and especially I used to teach a class, and I get the students would ask me, and they'd say, "Well, I don't want to get my property out there because I'm afraid someone will steal it or blah blah blah." And I said, "Well, it's not going to make you any money sitting in your file cabinet. At some point, you've got to. I mean, you don't want to be doing it all the time if you can avoid it, but if you have to give up something to get in that door so that you can do something bigger or do more, I think it's a worthwhile trade. But again, depends on the person. But there's a ton of, like the story you just, the example you just used. I mean, I know a guy who didn't sell his property because he held out for more money and ended up getting nothing, and then ended up without any money and a property that no one was interested in anymore. So it's, you got to be a little flexible there if you actually want to survive in the industry and work in the industry, regardless if that's comics or film. All right, let's take a look. Let's go over the campaign one more time here. I'm about ready to let you go. We've had you for 3 hours. You're like, get me out of here. I got to eat. So anyway, give us one last elevator pitch for this project, and we'll go over it and try and get you.
Sounds good. Okay, so DJINNTARA, story very close to my heart. It's about a Washington D.C. detective who discovers that she is part of an ancient race of genies called Jinn. And to complicate things, she is terminally ill with a form of cancer. And, you know, once she becomes this thing, discovers that she has these powers, she has a decision to make on whether she should use those for her own selfish purposes and be seduced by their dark essence, or reject them altogether, you know. And it's about this personal journey into her life and into this decision and how to comport herself once she realizes who and what she actually is. And so it's a very exciting story, very thrilling, you know, a lot of, you know, triumph and tragedy, things of that nature. But I think fans will really enjoy it, and I hope they join us.
I think it's a good looking book. Again, as we mentioned earlier, you got Ron Garney's going to be doing the cover for you. There's multiple pledge opportunities here, from the digital to the trade paperback, which is going to be about 130 pages, 128 pages you said there. It's got new material in it, plus the original 3 issues that you did of this comic. And you got the swagger boxers. We just had someone back that not too long ago. You can get the trade paperback signed. You can get a t-shirt with a signed edition, or you can go dig deep into your pockets and get Kevin to do a voicemail for you. Or go spend $400 and get to talk to Kevin for 30 minutes on the phone and pick his brain about his film career, his comic career, how to get in, how he got in, give you maybe some insights that you wouldn't be privy to otherwise. I think that's an awesome tier right there to back. Of course, a lot of people don't know that you were responsible for I, Frankenstein as well.
Yes.
So Underworld and I, Frankenstein are sort of like your big properties. Let me ask you this. Is there any talk, I think we touched on this a little bit before, but is there any talk of doing more Underworld films at this point? And would you be a part of that conversation?
I would probably, because of the deal and who's involved, I probably wouldn't be part of it. But I knew that early on because of the deal I made. And my thing was, it was about getting in and starting my career. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And so I, Frankenstein was supposed to be my getting out from under that and creating a bigger and better world than Underworld.
Right.
But, you know,
didn't
that
have
got
Kate Beckinsale in that, though.
Yeah, but that got jacked up. And my goodness, it's just something, you know, to this day it still hurts. But I created something that's better than that. And, you know, now that I've gotten my first film under my belt as far as being a director, I hope to peddle that and see where that takes me.
Are you planning on doing any comic book adaptation of your film, or was it a comic book adaptation?
Yeah. I just haven't put it out yet.
Okay.
Yeah, but soon.
Okay. Jimmy Reyes also, this is a good question. He says, can we ask Kevin if he ever worries about a studio picking up his script just to shelve it because they have a similar concept?
Yes.
That's interesting.
But you know, what are you going to do? You know, right. I mean, the way you word your contract is that if you don't make it at a certain time, it reverts back to you.
Okay. So I keep saying we're going to get out of here, but I got these film questions keep popping into my head. Okay. Right. So if because I knew that was that was always sort of a contingency with if someone optioned your property, right? It was be like, you got 5 years to use it, 3 years, whatever's in the contract.
Yeah.
But if they want to buy your screenplay, you can still put that contingency in the contract before you sell them the screenplay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because everyone knows that that's a possibility nowadays. Underworld had one of those clauses too. They only have a certain amount of time to make the film. If they don't make it, we get it back.
Does this incentivize, you think, production companies or studios or whoever's financing the film to buy or to actually make the film, or to maybe?
I do. I do. The only thing is, there are no guarantees, either, because they could say, okay, we want to take this off the market, we're going to make it, but we're going to change it so it doesn't interfere with what we want to do over here. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That can happen as well. I mean, there's a lot of insidious things that happen. You know, a lot of times, you know, agents will package scripts. A producer might want a particular script, and you know, he'll say, you know, the agent will say, well, you can't have that one. Well, why not? I'm paying top dollar. Not unless you take this script over here, and that might be one of your scripts. But if he takes it, that doesn't mean he's going to make it.
Right.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that's just the way it happens. Now you might get a check, but you'll never see that film again, that script again. Now what some people do is they write 2 different scripts, you know, with similar themes. You know what I'm saying? So if something happens to one, they have the other, and that stuff is real. That does happen.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't have thought of that, but that's actually a pretty clever way to get around that, right? So you've got something that's similar. It's not exactly the same, but it's similar enough that you're saving your concept in case you need it.
Exactly. Wow. Exactly.
The dark underbelly. Yeah.
I'm reading this in the chat. Kevin, do you have plans to work with David Brohawk Williams again? What? You're not reading that?
No, I'm not.
I didn't see it. I didn't see that. Oh.
See, I have plans, but his stories are whack. So.
But they're your stories. That's what I asked. If you're going to work with them again.
Oh man.
I'm going to put you on the spot. All right, we're at 29 backers, 1776. That was a good year.
Oh, yes, Lord.
So we've got about 12. We've raised about 1,200 so far today. Not too shabby.
Not too shabby at all.
So I want to. Oh, wait a minute. Here we go. One more from Jimmy. How did Kevin get a studio to look at his first script?
I had an agent at the time, and you know, they were able to send it out. There are also other things you can do too, like
show some
I
way.
used to do a lot of extra work, and so when you do extra work, I tell people oftentimes that can be the best free film school you'll ever attend. If you do 2 things. If you're very observant and you keep your mouth shut,
right?
If you do those things too, you can kind of pick your way to see who you can talk to and who you might be able to say, look, I don't want to overstep my bounds, trying to break in, blah, blah, blah.
Extra work.
Tell me who I can get to read my script. Or if, like I was on the set, like I was shooting Armageddon once back in '97. And I was standing right next to Jerry Bruckheimer, and he was dressed like the typical, you know, stereotypical producer. He had the jeans, the tweed jacket, the button-down shirt, the penny loafers with white socks. you know, the Don Johnson beard.
Yeah.
Now I didn't ask him anything, but after seeing him for a couple of days, I could have probably humbly said, you know, Mr. Bruckheimer, my name is so-and-so. I have this script. I know you get this a lot. But if you would do me the honor, do you think you could read my script? He probably would have said no. But, you know, they don't always say no. And so someone eventually has to say yes. And that's how you break in. That's one of the ways. So it can happen a myriad of different ways.
Yeah. Everybody's story is a little bit different, I would imagine.
Yeah.
Just like it is in comics, right? So,
yeah. Like I met Lynn Wiseman because I was an extra. I was an extra on Stargate, and he was a prop assistant on the same film.
And he went from prop assistant to director?
Yeah.
You never know, right? You just never know.
And you know, not everyone has to go to film school. I didn't go to film school.
I did, and I'm not in Hollywood. You did, and you are.
Yeah, but you see, but that's the crazy part.
Yep.
And what I don't like is that it was easier. It seems like it's easier to get into Hollywood, where there's more money, than there is the comic book industry, where there's less, you know.
And
And
it's
I'm
a very
like,
weird thing, that's for
yes,
sure.
it is. Yes, it is.
Okay. Well, I guess on that, we're going to call it a night. I want to thank you guys for joining me. David, thanks for showing up. Kevin, of course.
No,
What a
man,
pleasure.
I thank you for having me.
Well, it was great talking to you. I love picking your brain. You've got a lot of information and some good stories. And I know everybody in the chat enjoys it whenever you come on. And definitely, I know you're planning on it, but make the rounds, get on other people's shows, and get the word out on this book, because it looks terrific. It sounds great.
Thanks a lot.
And we want to get the word out to everybody. So you guys, thank you for joining us. And, share this information, share the links on social media and stuff. Help Kevin out, and we'll see if we can get this to a good number for him, that he can do some more and get this to be a television show or a movie. We'll look forward to that as well. So anyway, we'll have you back again, Kevin, and we'll talk some more. But everybody, you guys have a great night. Hit that like and subscribe button as well. The link for Kevin's project is in the description of this video. So you just click on it. It'll take you right over there. And so give it a look. I don't think you'll be sorry. So everybody, good night, everybody, and thank you.
Okay,
and we will
thanks a
see
lot.
you next time on Aaron Live.
Okay, thanks a lot, Ari. You take care.
Thank you. That was David Williams.